You practice immortality. I cultivate the land. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, Blue Deer. The newly hatched young dragon was extremely dependent on Feng Falcon, clinging to Feng Falcon's round belly and humming from time to time. Feng Falcon was somewhat helpless. Feeling the young dragon climbing on its belly, it couldn't help but spread its light blue wings and flew into the sky. The young dragon followed behind it, shaking its head. After all, it had just hatched. Although it was of a higher grade, it was still much weaker than the young Feng Falcon. It was soon left far behind by Feng Falcon. The young dragon was exhausted, struggled a few times, and landed on the ground unwillingly, uttering a whine. In the sky, Feng Falcon paused when it heard the whine. Its large light blue wings maintained its round body. It flapped a few times, and finally turned its head to fly towards the young dragon. Seeing this, the young dragon was delighted, and flew into the air with all its strength. It circled Feng Falcon's belly twice and finally wrapped around its neck. At first glance, it looked like a thick red chain was hanging on it. Little Fire Dragon is looking for its mother. Xuan smiled and inspected the spiritual fields in various parts of the mountain. He did not continue to pick the 200 ordinary firefly grasses that he had planted before, because the cultivation rewards from the light balls after maturity were significantly reduced, but all of them were used to condense spiritual seeds. More than 160 firefly grasses finally condensed more than 800 spiritual seeds. Xuan carefully gathered the spiritual seeds together, intending to induce them all to improve the varieties of firefly grasses. Among the remaining firefly grasses, 50 were not stimulated at the spiritual seed stage, but were cultivated in a cold and gloomy spiritual environment. After daily observation, all of these firefly grasses matured smoothly, and finally 9 mutant firefly grasses were obtained. He planned to try to condense the spiritual seeds of these 9 mutant firefly grasses, obtain a large number of mutant spiritual seeds, and speed up the improvement. The other 41 firefly grasses that failed to be stimulated were used to continue to condense ordinary spiritual seeds. Xuan picked one of the mutant firefly grasses, and as his mind was focused, a thought flashed through his mind. Spirit firefly grass, a spiritual plant without a grade, mutated during the cultivation process. The plant contains a slight ice-type spiritual power, which can be used as the main material of Yuan pill, and can slightly improve the quality of the pill when it is refined. Compared with the information obtained before, the grade has not changed, but there is a little more slight ice-type spiritual power in the plant, which can slightly improve the quality of the pill. Xuan muttered to himself. He had long known that haste makes waste in improving spiritual plant varieties, so he was not disappointed with this result. The change in the first improvement is already quite good. What we need to do next is to continue to improve until the grade of the spirit firefly grass jumps. Xuan sighed while gently picking up the white light ball brought by the mutant spirit firefly grass. In the light ball, there was still 2 months of cultivation and no changes. He was not discouraged and went to check the other 26 spirit firefly grass cultivated by the mutant spiritual seeds, and also planned to use them to condense seeds, so as to obtain a large number of mutant spiritual seeds. On the branch of the earth fire, in the hot magma, the earth fire heart lotus spiritual seed quietly grew out. The lotus root stem is only as thick as a little finger, as if it is composed of countless irregular light red crystals. Several fiery red lotus leaves stand proudly in the magma, allowing the magma to surge and wash away. The fiery red and hot magma flows down from the palm-sized leaves, slowly absorbed by the dark red veins in the leaves, extending along the veins, nourishing the entire root of the earth fire heart lotus. The days of farming are like flowing water, without any waves, quietly passing by, and only the many spiritual plants that continue to grow leave traces of that time. After nourishing the sword grass spirit seed with the Xuan sword sheath for a period of time, Xuan felt that it was enough, so he grabbed the ancient sword sheath and shook it hard. A grey-black seed as slender as a sword with light red lines on the surface, slid out without any hindrance. Hey, there are some changes. He looked at the light red lines on the surface of the swordgrass spirit seed and exclaimed in surprise. After a few leaps, he arrived at the branch of the earth fire and planted the spirit seed in the spirit field rebuilt by the spirit field land inducing technique. Red flame swordgrass, a second grade spirit plant, is formed by the long-term nourishment and stimulation of the second grade red flame sword ki. When it matures, it can be refined into a fire attributed flying sword, and the effect is better. When cultivating, it can be warmed and nourished with the red flame sword ki. The grade has not changed, it is still second grade, but compared with ordinary swordgrass, it is more suitable for refining fire attributed flying swords, and the function is more single and powerful. Xuan compared it with ordinary swordgrass, and his spiritual consciousness probed into the Xuan sword sheath. There was not much red flame sword ki left on the inner wall of the scabbard, and it was estimated that it was completely absorbed by the swordgrass spirit seed. His mind moved, and the Zunli sword pill in the Danshan trembled slightly, and dozens of black sword beams rushed out, with small jumping arcs, and entered from the crack. It's full, no more. Although the ancient scabbard welcomed the sword light without a physical form, its own endurance was limited after all, and soon the inner wall of the scabbard was filled with black sword light. Xuan stuffed the last swordgrass spirit seed into it, expecting that the third grade Zunli sword light would cause some changes to the spirit seed. The success rate of stimulating spirit seeds seems to be higher than stimulating spirit plants, but it also takes a lot longer, and there are pros and cons. He sealed the cracks in the Xuan scabbard, and waited for the unknown changes of the swordgrass spirit seed. On this day, when Xuan was cultivating spirit plants and raising spirit beasts, suddenly, a low deer cry came from the distance of the mountain. The cry was ethereal and distant, and it echoed in the valley for a long time. Xuan noticed that at the moment, when the cry appeared, all the spirit plants on the mountain trembled together, stretched out their stems and leaves, and let the cry pass by. Xuan randomly selected a spirit plant to check its current state, and found that it was in a very good state, as if the cry washed away the slight negative state of the spirit plant. Xuan flew to a tall spiritual tree and looked over. He saw a giant deer about 2 feet tall passing by not far away. The deer was green in color, and the 2 antlers on its head were like white jade. One could feel a sense of holiness from afar. It was unknown how long it had lived. The hair on the deer was sparse and tangled in strands. Green ripples echoed where the 4 hooves landed. Where the ripples passed, spiritual plants grew wildly, revealing a strong vitality. After a few breaths, the figure of the deer disappeared from Xuan's sight, and only the ethereal and distant cry was still echoing. Fellow Daoist Jiang, what is the origin of this giant deer that just passed by? It seems to have an extraordinary origin. Xuan walked out of the mountain and saw a middle-aged cultivator standing on a tall spiritual tree more than 100 feet away, so he asked curiously, "Hello, Mr. Lu. I have seen the giant deer several times before and have a certain understanding of it. The giant deer is called Xuan deer. It has the strength of a 5th grade demon beast. It is said to have been the spirit beast of a giant and elder in the sect." Chapter 202 Holy Infant Fruit. It's just that the master uncle who had reached the giant stage encountered an accident while exploring a cave and accidentally died in it, leaving behind only this 5th grade Xuan deer. This Xuan deer has a deep bond with the master uncle who had reached the giant stage. After the master uncle passed away, it has been staying in the sect, guarding the mountain, and protecting the sect. Every once in a while, it will wander around the inner sect, as if calling for the spirit of the deceased master uncle. It has guarded the sect for hundreds of years, and now, the Xuan deer is about to die, and it doesn't have many years to live. The middle-aged cultivator said with some regret. Hearing this secret, Xuan couldn't help but be a little surprised. A 5th grade demon beast, equivalent to a cultivator in the giant stage, has reached such a stage, and is still so loyal and nostalgic to the master, who has passed away for many years, which is also a good story. Brother Lu, it's rare to meet you today. Why don't you come to my place for a cup of spiritual tea? The middle-aged cultivator said with a smile. The cultivator's name was Jiang Wangling. He was good at alchemy. He had the same cultivation level as Xuan, and had been in the early stage of foundation building for decades. The mountain where he lived was not far from Xuan, and they gradually became acquaintances. Lu Xuan readily agreed and followed Jiang Wangling into his courtyard. The courtyard was very quiet. In the courtyard sat a huge alchemy furnace with 2 ears and 3 feet, engraved with countless mysterious and obscure runes. Lu Xuan's eyes swept through the many rooms in the courtyard and found that most of the houses had an alchemy furnace. Under many of the alchemy furnaces, the alchemy fire was burning quietly, and occasionally the roar of the alchemy furnace could be heard when it was running at full speed. I didn't expect that senior brother Jiang had such a deep attainment in alchemy. Lu Xuan smiled and said, "It's okay, just passable among all the fellow disciples." The middle-aged cultivator laughed and led Lu Xuan into the house. To practice 100 arts, there must be one that is good enough to assist in practice. He sighed while brewing spiritual tea for Lu Xuan. "Brother, what you said is very true." Lu Xuan agreed deeply and nodded. Among the hundreds of arts he cultivated, he had a very deep attainment in spiritual plants, but it was a little too deep, which made cultivation secondary. I wonder what kind of skills junior brother Lu is good at. Although the two had met several times, they didn't know each other well. Jiang Wangling asked Lu Xuan curiously, "I have some experience in cultivating spiritual plants and raising spiritual beasts." Lu Xuan said modestly, "I can make pills, and junior brother Lu is good at spiritual plants. The two are closely related, and we should get to know each other well." Hearing this, the middle-aged cultivator toasted Lu Xuan with a glass of wine. "Please take care of me, senior brother." Lu Xuan returned the greeting. "Junior brother Lu, I know there is a secret realm that contains many spiritual medicines. Since those spiritual medicines can only grow in specific environments, they cannot be found in other places, so we can only wait until they are mature before picking them. Junior brother, are you willing to go with me next time and work together to fight for spiritual medicines? Maybe you can get those rare spiritual medicines." The middle-aged cultivator invited Lu Xuan when they were drunk. "To be honest, I have a lot of spiritual plants planted in my spiritual field that need to be taken care of. There are also other varieties that my uncle pays special attention to, so I have no time to explore the secret realm and look for opportunities. Besides, it has not been long since I broke through the foundation building realm. The amount of spiritual fluid in my body is not much, and the new practice has not been practiced for a long time. If I encounter any danger, it may cause trouble to you. So, I'd better stay in the sect and consolidate my own cultivation." Lu Xuan made up a reason casually. The middle-aged cultivator just mentioned it casually. Seeing that Lu Xuan did not agree, he did not care, and the two continued to chat. Lu Xuan learned a lot of sect secrets from him, which satisfied his inner curiosity. After returning to his own mountain, Lu Xuan rested for a while, counted and sorted out the magic tools and treasures on his body, took out his identity nameplate, passed through the sect protection formation, and went to Jianmen Town. It has been a long time since I last checked the small courtyard I rented before, and I don't know how the spiritual plants in it are growing now. Jianmen Town, small courtyard. Lu Xuan opened the 1,000 illusion clouds and smoke array, passed through the layers of smoke, and came to the middle of the courtyard. The 3rd grade poisonous shuttlewood has taken root and sprouted, and has grown a lot of leaves. The leaves are just like the name of the spiritual plant, shaped like a shuttle filled with poisonous gas. In the past such a long time, the ghosts and resentments in the yard have long been absorbed by the 5 ghost-faced stone mushrooms. Lu Xuan took out the ghost beads and controlled the ghosts in the beads to appear. Each ghost has a full and solid shape, which is in sharp contrast to the ghosts and resentments that appear in the resentful soul bell. It's fattened up, now we can start slaughtering it. Lu Xuan sighed, controlling the resentment of many ghosts to fly above the ghost-faced stone mushroom, allowing the human face composed of strange patterns to absorb it. The thorn bone, which is also a 3rd grade, has no worries about food and drink because it has a huge skeleton of a barbarian armored ox and a purple cloud leopard skeleton. The dense bone spurs penetrated deeply into the skeleton of the barbarian armored ox, forming a strange thorn forest. The two are closely combined and seem to be integrated into one. The thorn bone greedily absorbs the nutrients from the monster skeleton. Lu Xuan estimated that when the nutrients in the barbarian armored ox skeleton are completely absorbed, the thorn bone will abandon it as soon as possible, and the bone spurs on the white bone branches will take root in another new skeleton. As for the 4th grade 100 pupils Strangewood, because Lu Xuan brought a lot of monster pupils last time, more than a dozen strange pupils were open or half open on the dry and old tree trunk. Looking at Lu Xuan looked at it for a few more times, and suddenly felt a slight dizziness in his head, and his spiritual power surged, and his spiritual consciousness suddenly became clear. This 100-eyed Strangewood is really weird. Lu Xuan sighed to himself, and came to Wanbao Tower. As soon as he entered the spacious and magnificent hall, a beautiful girl came to greet him. Her spiritual consciousness carefully scanned Lu Xuan's body, and she felt that he was deep and unfathomable. The girl's face suddenly changed slightly, and she stood beside Lu Xuan and said respectfully, "I don't know what you need. Wanbao Tower will do its best to meet it." As he spoke, an old man with a ruddy face came down from the upstairs and greeted Lu Xuan from afar. "Fellow Daoist." Lu Xuan nodded in response. "Fellow Daoist, you are so young, you have already broken through to the foundation building stage, and you are born in a famous family. Your future is limitless." The old man sighed from the bottom of his heart. He led Lu Xuan to an elegant room upstairs, where top quality spiritual tea and spiritual fruits were continuously presented, making Lu Xuan, a spiritual plant master, a little overwhelmed for a moment. "Brother Lu, you are here at Wanbao Tower this time. Is there anything I can help you with?" After chatting for a while, the two of them had a preliminary understanding of each other, and the ruddy-faced old man asked, "I have some spiritual plants in my hands, which are of good quality. I want to exchange them for suitable spiritual seeds from your building. I wonder if it is feasible? What are Brother Lu's requirements for spiritual seeds?" The grade must not be lower than the 3rd grade, the higher the better, and it is best to be a rare and uncommon variety. Upon hearing this, the old man's face showed a trace of apology. "I'm sorry fellow Daoist Lu, I'm afraid that the Wanbao building branch in Jianmen Town cannot meet your requirements. After all, Wanbao building's main target customers are key training cultivators, and they also have several 3rd grade spiritual seeds in their collection. But they are all common varieties, and it is estimated that it will be difficult to meet fellow Daoist Lu's needs. However, there is a mid-stage foundation building cultivator in Wanbao building who will organize a treasure exchange conference in the near future, and many foundation building cultivators have already participated. Among them, there are spiritual seeds that meet your requirements, fellow Daoist Lu. It is said that there is a rare 5th grade spiritual seed." "Oh. What spiritual seed?" Lu Xuan immediately became very interested. "The 5th grade holy infant fruit, a spiritual plant with a very evil nature in the cultivation world." The old man said solemnly, "I weekly ask for the July monthly ticket. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 203, The one with a ball of light is a good spiritual plant. 5th grade spiritual seed. Lu Xuan exclaimed in a low voice after hearing this. 5th grade spiritual plants correspond to the Jiandan realm. Even though he had never come into contact with spiritual plants of this grade in the Xianjian sect. So far, the highest spiritual plants he had planted were 4th grade, namely the black insect vine and the 100-eyed Strangewood. Among them, the black insect vine spiritual seed was obtained in the Sinan Hall after a large amount of spiritual stones were collected from the Qianlan Lake. As for the 100-eyed Strangewood, it was an unknown evil spiritual seed that was found at the Kington small meeting in the sect with King Miolingcha. Only after planting it did he know its species and grade. Both were hard won and cost him a lot of money. Therefore, after hearing the words of the old man in Wanbao Tower in front of him, Lu Xuan was inevitably surprised. Although it is a little evil, it is indeed a 5th grade spiritual seed. Seeing that Lu Xuan was a little unbelievable, the old man confirmed again. "Spiritual plants are evil? Is there any saying about that?" Lu Xuan asked curiously. He had planted quite a few evil spiritual plants, and their grades were not low, at least grade 3. Therefore, He was quite receptive to this kind of spiritual plants. No matter what sexual characteristics it had, a good spiritual plant would produce a white light ball. The holy infant fruit spiritual plant is extremely rare in the cultivation world. It will only appear occasionally after many years. Xuan Baolao has collected information about various treasures and has learned a little about it. This time, a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building came to participate in the treasure exchange meeting organized by the senior management of Xuan Baolao, intending to sell the holy infant fruit spiritual seeds he accidentally obtained. It is said that cultivators in the cultivation world who planted the holy infant fruit eventually had difficulty saving their lives. They either died tragically or disappeared. In addition, the holy infant fruit itself was quite evil, so many spiritual plant masters avoided it like snakes and scorpions, fearing that it would bring disaster to themselves. The ruddy old man did not hide anything from Xuan. After all, it involved the good reputation accumulated by Xuan Baolao for thousands of years, and he could not avoid the important and mislead customers. More importantly, Xuan has already reached the foundation building stage at a young age, and he is also a disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect. If Xuan suffers a major loss due to the wrong information, it is unlikely that he will have a good ending. I see. Xuan nodded thoughtfully. He did not quite believe it. After all, in his understanding, even the evil spiritual plants would only cause limited harm to the cultivators. Only when the 4th grade 100-eyed strange wood stares at it for a long time, it is possible to lose its mind, but this situation can be avoided with a little attention. Moreover, he can control the real-time status of the spiritual plants he planted personally. If he finds any harmful things, he can completely kill them in the bud. I'm somewhat interested in the treasure exchange conference organized by the foundation building cultivators of your building. Please help me introduce one or two. Xuan said in a low voice. The organizer is one of the senior executives of the Xuan Bao building, with the foundation building stage in the middle stage, and he is in one of his caves. How far is the cave from Jianmen Town? Hearing that the treasure exchange conference was not held in Jianmen Town, Xuan felt a little alert. It's not very far from Jianmen Town, about 600 to 700 miles away. Xuan nodded after hearing this. This distance is within his acceptable range. It is in the power radiation area of Xianjian sect, and there should be quite a few fellow disciples going to participate. If there is any accident with the identity badge of the inner disciple, he can ask for help from the surrounding fellow disciples and even the sect in time. After breaking through to the foundation building realm, his own strength has also greatly improved. Many 3rd grade treasures and 3rd grade skills are among the best among the cultivators of the same level, especially the protection and escape treasures and spells, which are far ahead of others. Finally, Xuan Bao Tower is famous in the entire cultivation world. Since this kind of conference is held, its safety is guaranteed. Thinking of this, Xuan no longer hesitated. Please tell me the detailed time, place, and participation method of the treasure exchange conference. When the old man heard Xuan's words, an eager smile appeared on his face. He took out a gilded calligraphy from the storage bag and handed it to Xuan. This is an invitation to the treasure exchange conference. The corresponding runes are drawn on it. When the conference is about to start, the runes will light up within a certain range, guiding the cultivators to the conference venue. At that time, there will be cultivators to confirm and guide fellow Taoists to enter the conference. Fellow Taoist Lu can also tell me in advance what treasures you want to sell and what you want to exchange for, so as to prepare for a rainy day. The old man explained to Xuan in detail that being able to introduce a young foundation building cultivator with an extraordinary background and outstanding talent to the conference was also a great achievement. I want to sell the 3rd grade spiritual plants Xuan Iron Luo fruit and Jiao Teng, both of which are of very good quality, and the 3rd grade pure spirit talisman. As for what I want to exchange, it is best to have high grade spiritual seeds or monster eggs, or young beasts. Xuan took out the 3rd grade Xuan Iron Luo fruit and Jiao Teng from the storage bag. In the pale white spiritual fruit, smoke rose and lingered, and illusions were reborn, making people dazzled at a glance. A long and thick blood red vine. The vine is winding and twisting, like a poisonous snake lurking in the dark, with blood red liquid flowing inside, adding a bit of charm. Superior quality Xuan and Luo fruit. Good quality Gyro vine. This quality is quite rare among the same grade of spiritual plants. Worthy of being a disciple of a large sect. Being able to cultivate such spiritual plants. The ruddy old man looked at the Xuan and Luo fruit and Gyro vine and exclaimed in surprise. The third grade talisman, the purification talisman, can detect evil spirits in a certain area. Even if it is a strange level evil spirit, the purification talisman can have a certain degree of purification effect. Although it doesn't have much offensive and defensive effects, it is a great weapon when facing those evil spirits that are hard to defend against. After the old man identified it, the spiritual energy surged on his body, and a black and white paper bird flew out, stretched out in the low sky, and became a piece of white paper condensed with a lot of ink. The black liquid automatically gathered into a black pen, recording the information left by Xuan. With a whoosh, it disappeared from the sight of the two. Fellow Daoist, I still have some spiritual plants in my hand, including second grade copperbone bamboo, flowing lightwood, and a large number of spiritual fireflies. Please evaluate their value for me and exchange them for spiritual stones. Xuan turned to the old man and said, second grade copperbone bamboo is an excellent material for refining flying swords, but Xuan now has a second grade red flame sword after the scabbard is tempered, and there is a Zunli sword pill in the dungeon, as well as a total of 12 sword grasses in the previous and next batches, so he is not very eager to refine flying swords. The flowing light wood, which is also second grade, can be used to tan and make talisman paper. He only has a superficial understanding of talisman making, so he has the idea of exchanging it for spiritual stones for daily needs. As for the spiritual firefly grass, although it has no grade, it is large in quantity. A mosquito leg is also meat. Accumulated, it can also be exchanged for considerable spiritual stones. Okay, fellow Daoist Lu, please come this way. The old man immediately nodded and agreed. The quality of copperbone bamboo and flowing lightwood is the best, so the price is much higher. Together with the many firefly grasses, Xuan has more than 1,500 spirit stones in total, which makes him richer. Xuan came to the Bluestone Square and quickly bought some monster meat that the three children liked and found 3 second-hand flying swords to prepare for the treasure exchange meeting. Chapter 204 Seed. Xuan's figure floated in front of a huge stone mountain like floating light. He looked down at the invitation card with many runes drawn on it in his hand and saw that all the runes were lit up and the brightness was the highest near the center, which was the stone mountain. There was also an arrow pointing to the stone mountain, indicating that this was the final venue of the treasure exchange meeting. The surface of the stone mountain was desolate, and when the spiritual consciousness explored it, it could be found that there was another mystery inside. Xuan looked around and walked slowly towards the stone mountain. At this moment, he was quite different from usual. He wore a bronze mask bought from the stalls of casual cultivators, which could disguise his face and isolate a certain degree of spiritual consciousness from prying. In front of a vertical stone wall of the stone mountain, there was a tall stone door. In front of the stone door, there were 2 key cultivating perfect cultivators standing by, smiling and welcoming the cultivators who participated in the treasure exchange enthusiastically. Xuan secretly observed and came to the 2 people. After confirming the authenticity of the invitation card and Xuan's cultivation, they respectfully led him into the stone door. After a while, he came to the bottom of the stone mountain. There is a spacious hall inside, which is hidden deep in the mountain, and is equipped with a powerful formation. At this time, there are already more than 100 cultivators inside, and Xuan took a rough look. Among the many cultivators, most of them are at the higher level of key training, or the perfect level of key training. There are more than 30 people in the early stage of foundation building, and about 10 people in the middle stage of foundation building. Among these 10 people, 2 have unfathomable spiritual power, and may have the late stage of foundation building. Of course, it is not ruled out that there are cultivators who deliberately hide their cultivation. For example, Xuan has a 3rd grade hidden spirit cloak that can hide his body and spiritual power. However, because he has a plan to exchange for a 5th grade holy infant fruit spirit seed, he did not hide his cultivation. After all, if a cultivator who is openly in the key training realm exchanges for a 5th grade spirit seed, it is likely to cause trouble and add to the disaster. Xuan found a stone chair to sit on, closed his eyes and rest, waiting for the meeting to start. On the way, he also used the updated inner sect disciple identity badge to sense his surroundings, and roughly sensed that there were 5 other monks with familiar auras among the monks present, which instantly dispelled Xuan's remaining vigilance. The updated identity badge is indeed extraordinary. It can detect the traces of fellow disciples nearby. Although the specific location cannot be determined, it is already very good to have so many fellow disciples accompany us. If there is really an accident, then raise your arms and team up with 5 fellow disciples. Then see who will have unfavorable ideas for us. Xuan once again experienced the power of the sect and sighed in his heart. After about half an hour, all the monks were present. A fat monk walked onto the stage in the hall. He coughed lightly, and the crowd in the audience quickly quieted down. Welcome all the Taoist friends who have come from afar to participate in this treasure exchange meeting I'm holding. I will briefly introduce the rules to you Taoist friends to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Each cultivator can go on stage by himself, show the treasure in his hand, explain the grade and type of the treasure you need, and exchange with many Taoist friends in the audience. After a round of display, it will enter the free exchange stage. You can communicate privately, and you can also bring in third-party cultivators to exchange with each other to obtain the desired treasure. Of course, the most important point is that you cannot force a sale. Both parties must be willing. If you force others to exchange treasures, it means that you are not taking into account the face of our Wanbao Tower, so don't blame us for being rude. There is a powerful formation in the hall, and my foundation building friends are helping. Please consider your own abilities before making trouble. After the fat cultivator introduced the rules, he flew down the stone platform and handed it to the cultivators in the audience. Soon someone rushed to the stone platform and opened the prelude to the treasure exchange meeting. Xuan sat in a corner, silently watching the stage and the audience. As more and more cultivators came on stage, various treasures appeared, including some 3rd and 4th grade ones, which made Xuan salivate. The treasures were mainly magic tools, elixirs, and talismans, which were the largest in number. In addition, there were also many spiritual plants and monster materials, and there were many strange and bizarre things. As for the spiritual seeds, spiritual plant seedlings, monster eggs, and young beasts that Xuan was most concerned about, although they occasionally appeared, they could not satisfy him. 3rd grade spiritual seeds appeared twice, but they were just ordinary seeds, which were more common in the cultivation world. Xuan remembered that there were records in the Jade Book in the Sinner Hall, and they could be exchanged for some spirit stones. Monster eggs and young beasts were even more difficult to obtain. Only one cultivator who had completed key training showed a 2nd grade monster baby. On the contrary, there were several complete 3rd grade monster bodies that appeared, which made him a little interested. As more and more people came on stage, soon, only some foundation building cultivators had not yet come on stage to show. A skinny monk flew to the stage and took out a strange spiritual seed from his storage bag. The shape of the spiritual seed was like an embryo, and there seemed to be a baby curled up inside. The baby was grey and black, dry, and thin, and stayed in the spiritual seed motionless. When he wanted to take a closer look, the baby in the spiritual seed changed again, and his body gradually blurred, as if the scene he just saw was illusory. The holy infant fruit spiritual seed, a 5th grade spiritual plant, is rumored to produce a spiritual fruit that looks like a baby, and can be used as a top quality material for refining an external incarnation. Since the spiritual seed has the lowest value among treasures of the same grade, it can be exchanged for a 4th grade treasure, and a 3rd grade rare treasure can also be considered. As soon as the skinny monk finished speaking, most of the key training monks present, who did not know why, burst into an uproar. For them who were still in the key training stage, the 5th grade corresponded to the unattainable giant stage, and the value of this holy infant fruit in their hearts rose sharply. Unfortunately, at the most incompetent age, when they encountered the treasure they wanted most, they were powerless, and could only sigh softly. Fellow Daoist, you are being a little unfair. It is true that the holy infant fruit is a 5th grade spiritual seed, but you concealed the evilness of this spiritual plant. If it is exchanged by a cultivator who does not understand the inside, I'm afraid it will suffer a great loss. A light voice sounded from the audience. Who? The skinny monk's face changed drastically, and his spiritual sense frantically scanned the audience. But the person who spoke was not inferior to him in cultivation, so it would not be so easy to find him, so he had to give up. I did not introduce it clearly. It is said that this holy infant fruit has some evil nature. Many cultivators who planted it ended up missing or died tragically. Of course, this is just a rumor, and it is not credible. The skinny monk who was exposed was a little embarrassed. He took a deep breath and tried to explain. He waited quietly on the stage. Among the many cultivators in the audience, there were not many who had the habit of cultivating spiritual plants. Most of them were mainly engaged in refining pills and tools. The few interested foundation building monks did not have the confidence to cultivate it, and there were rumors about the evil of the holy infant fruit. Therefore, although there was a 5th grade spirit seed in front, not many monks offered a bid. Only 3 or 5 people offered a bid, and the highest bid was from a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building, who tried to exchange it with a complete 4th grade monster skeleton. The skinny monk hesitated, and at this moment, a voice came into his ears. Dao, I have a long section of 3rd grade Giovine, which is of good quality, and a 3rd grade purification talisman, which can purify the rare species of evil spirits. How about exchanging it for your holy infant fruit spirit seed? 5 grade spirit seeds, in exchange for 2 3rd grade treasures. I'm losing a lot. The skinny old man compared them and directly refused. You know the value of the holy infant fruit spirit seed, and what you can exchange for is already good. How about this? I'll add a 3rd grade purification talisman. If Dao still disagrees, then forget it. Lu Xuan smiled and transmitted the message from the audience. Okay, deal. After hearing the reply from the skinny monk, he showed a satisfied expression. Chapter 205 The Six-Eyed Red Iron Scorpion Full of Treasures. After the skinny old man stepped down, Lu Xuan stood up and walked around him. Fellow Daoist, this is the 3rd grade Giovine and the 3rd grade Pure Spirit Talisman. He took out a thick, dark vine and 2 white jade talismans with a gleaming white light from his storage bag. Yes, the quality of the Giovine is beyond my expectation. The skinny old man carefully examined the Giovine in his hand, which was like a vicious and poisonous snake, and said with satisfaction, Fellow Daoist, please keep this 5th grade holy infant fruit spirit seed. He handed the spirit seed to Lu Xuan. As soon as the spirit seed fell into his hand, Lu Xuan sensed a faint cold breath. The holy infant fruit spirit seed has a rather strange shape. At first glance, it looks like an oval embryo, with a dry and skinny grey-black baby curled up inside. The baby seemed to sense Lu Xuan's gaze, and turned in the direction of his sight without leaving a trace. Suddenly, a wisp of cold and resentful meaning spread, as if trying to penetrate into Lu Xuan's body. Lu Xuan's mind moved, and a cool breath came from the immaculate jade hanging around his neck. The breath swept across his body, washing every part of his skin. The cold resentment instantly dissipated, and the vague grey-black baby in the spirit seed in his hand became a grey-black thing, as if it was all Lu Xuan's hallucination before. It is worthy of being a 5th grade spirit seed. It is indeed a bit evil. Lu Xuan secretly sighed, and carefully put the holy infant fruit spirit seed into the storage bag. The treasure exchange meeting continued. Although Lu Xuan had obtained the 5th grade holy infant fruit spirit seed, the main goal of this trip, he still paid attention to the treasures displayed by the monks on the stage to see if he could find the desired spirit seed, monster fetus and eggs, etc. The monks off the stage took turns to go on stage, and soon it was Lu Xuan's turn. He came to the stone platform and took out a spirit fruit that looked like smoke and fog from the storage bag. The illusionary smoke fruit is a 3rd grade spiritual fruit of superior quality. After taking it, you can speed up the practice of illusion and enhance the power of the magic. It can also be used to raise monsters with relevant innate abilities, or to refine some rare elixirs. It can be used to exchange for rare spiritual seeds of the 3rd grade or above, or monster eggs and young beasts. If there are fresh and complete corpses of 3rd grade or above monsters, you can also consider it. As soon as Lu Xuan finished speaking, many cultivators who practiced illusions were tempted. The top quality illusionary smoke fruit was rare. It was a pity that most cultivators did not have spiritual seeds and beasts that could satisfy Lu Xuan, and the spiritual seeds that a few people took out were all ordinary goods. Lu Xuan considered it, and finally refused politely. Soon, it entered the free exchange stage. If the cultivators wanted to exchange treasures in their hands, but one party was not satisfied with the treasures provided by the other party, then they could pull in a third party and each party would take what they needed. Lu Xuan stayed quietly in the corner, thinking only about how to return to Jianmen Town safely and quickly after the conference. The 5th grade holy infant fruit spirit seed he had just obtained was full of evil nature. It was contrary to his status as an inner sect disciple of a famous and upright sect. It was not convenient to plant it in the sect. He planned to plant it in the netherworld spiritual field in the courtyard of Jianmen Town. Dao Ao. A hoarse voice came from his side. Lu Xuan turned his head and saw a black-robed monk not far away, smiling at him. Dao Ao, what's the matter? I have a very freshly preserved corpse of a demon beast, the grade of which is 4th grade. I want to exchange it for the Xuan and Luo fruit in your hand. However, there is a great difference between the two after all. It is not cost effective to exchange directly. So I come here to discuss it with you now. Fresh 4th grade demon beast corpse. Can you take it out for me to see? Hearing what the black-robed monk said, Lu Xuan suddenly became a little curious. The black-robed monk came to the empty space in the hall, flicked his right hand at his waist, and a huge scorpion appeared on the ground. The giant scorpion is more than half a foot long, and has a hideous appearance. Its slender tail hangs upside down like a spike. Occasionally, a deep black light appears on it, indicating its strong toxicity. It is red all over, and its shell looks extremely hard. There are 3 eyes on each side of its head. Even if it is dead, you can still see a fierceness from its 6 eyes. This is a 4th grade demon beast, a 6-eyed red iron scorpion. It is extremely toxic. Its shell bones are very hard. Under the gaze of its 6 eyes, it can slow down the opponent's speed. If the grade difference is large, it can even be directly fixed. Seeing Lu Xuan's curiosity, the black-robed monk explained patiently in a hoarse voice. This 6-eyed red iron scorpion is well preserved. The scorpion bones can be used to refine defensive magic tools, and the scorpion tail can also be refined into a poison needle magic tool. In addition, the essence, blood, pupils, etc. are also useful. In terms of value, it is much higher than the 3rd grade Xuan and Luo fruit in your hand. Therefore, if you want to exchange it, I hope to make up for the difference between the two. Hearing this, Lu Xuan's face showed hesitation. This corpse of the demon beast is indeed well preserved, but the most essential venom in it has been taken away, and its value is probably reduced by half. The phantom smoke Luo fruit in my hand is of rare and superior quality, much more precious than ordinary 3rd grade spiritual fruits, and the difference between the two is not that big. Lu Xuan thought for a while and said slowly, this 4th grade 6-eyed red iron scorpion is a treasure for him now. The pupils can be used to cultivate the 100-pupiled strange wood, and getting 6 at once is an extra gain. The bones can be used as nutrients for thorn bones, and the parts of the corpse that contain scorpion venom can be used to cultivate poisonous shuttlewood, which has a wide range of uses. But he still wants to get it at the lowest price, so he directly points out the defects of the corpse to lower the price. What do you want to exchange for my demon beast corpse? 3rd grade phantom smoke Luo fruit, plus 400 spirit stones. This is the highest price I can offer. What do you think? Lu Xuan said, pretending to be indifferent. Okay, deal. Although what Lu Xuan paid was still a little far from what the cultivator expected, he urgently needed this phantom smoke fruit, so he nodded in agreement. Lu Xuan put the giant scorpion corpse into the storage bag and waited for the meeting to end. Outside the tall stone mountain, Lu Xuan walked out of the belly of the mountain, feeling the vague prying eyes beside him. The spiritual power in his body was running wildly, and his figure turned into a floating light and disappeared in a few breaths. When there was no one around, transparent lines emerged on the surface of the hidden spirit cloak draped inside, and a thin layer of special material appeared in front of his eyes, and his figure disappeared on the spot. After a while, Lu Xuan's spiritual energy was consumed by more than half, and his figure appeared several miles away. He carefully sensed the surroundings and confirmed that there was no abnormality, then rushed to Jianmen Town. Jianmen Town, small courtyard. Lu Xuan opened the 1,000 phantom clouds and smoke array and entered the small courtyard. As soon as the thick clouds and smoke covered the small courtyard, he couldn't wait to take the holy infant fruit spirit seed out of the storage bag. This is the first time I'm cultivating a 5th grade spiritual seed, he thought with anticipation. Chapter 206. Those who fish for others will always be fished for. The spiritual power in his body surged, and the earth drawing technique controlled the spiritual soil to undergo subtle changes. A small pit appeared, and Lu Xuan carefully placed the embryo-like spiritual seed in his hand into the pit, and then concentrated his mind on the spiritual seed. Or thought flashed through his mind. Holy infant fruit, a 5th grade spiritual plant, can enhance the spiritual awareness of cultivators and improve their roots. After taking the mature spiritual fruit directly, it can also be used as the main material for refining the 5th grade holy infant pill to increase the success rate of cultivators breaking through the realm. The high quality holy infant fruit can also be used to refine an external incarnation. When cultivating, it needs to be planted in a yin and yang soil environment. Adding infant blood, soul, and resentment during the growth stage can accelerate the growth rate. When in contact for a long time, it may be affected by the strong resentment in the plant and contaminated with yin resentment. The daughter plant can merge with the mother plant after maturity and integrate into it. Within a certain range, the mother plant can specifically sense the breath of the daughter plant. When it is close to maturity, it can possess the daughter plant to observe and sense the surrounding situation. It is indeed a 5th grade spiritual plant equivalent to the Jiandan realm. Its efficacy is too strong. Lu Xuan sighed subconsciously. However, what does the subplant in the information mean? This holy infant fruit spirit seed is just a seed produced by the mother plant, not an independent one. Lu Xuan recalled the information in his mind, and his expression gradually became gloomy. The mother plant can find the location of the subplant, and can also observe the surrounding situation through the subplant. In other words, when the holy infant fruit is about to mature, the location of my spiritual field and my every move may be known by the mother plant. Lu Xuan thought of this, and a look of fear appeared on his face instantly. In other words, I spent countless blood and energy to cultivate this 5th grade holy infant fruit plant to maturity, and then attracted the mother plant and the monks behind it to confirm my location and understand my strength, so as to take back the mature subplant while stealing money and killing people. His expression was uncertain, and he was extremely grateful to be able to understand the detailed information of the spiritual plant he planted. Otherwise, he would probably lose both his money and his life. No wonder the old man in Wanbao Tower said that the holy infant fruit is quite evil, and most of the monks who planted it ended up with tragic deaths or disappearance. I thought it was just a rumor at first, but I didn't expect that all this was man-made. He slowly calmed down and considered how to deal with this 5th grade holy infant fruit spiritual seed. Now he has two choices. One is to dig out the spiritual seed directly and throw it far away to the wilderness before it takes root and sprouts, leaving it to fend for itself. Or sell it at a low price as soon as possible in exchange for some spiritual stones and resources to stop the loss in time. The second option is to plant it in the spiritual field and cultivate it normally. After all, this is the first 5th grade spiritual seed he has obtained. The richness of the light ball after maturity can be imagined, and it has cost a lot of money. For him who has always been frugal, just abandoning it is tantamount to cutting off a large piece of meat. The most important thing is that the offensive and defensive positions between the two sides have changed. Without noticing the abnormality of the holy infant fruit spirit seed, the monk behind him could use his resources to cultivate the holy infant fruit plant to maturity, and then understand his strength and position, and take back the subplant while secretly attacking, stealing money and killing. But now, Lu Xuan already knows the detailed characteristics of the holy infant fruit plant, and can use this to set a trap, reversely kill the monk behind him, and get the holy infant fruit mother plant in his hand. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this method was feasible, and secretly calculated the possibility of success in his heart. My own strength is in the early stage of foundation building. Because of the reward from the light ball, I have many treasures on me, and the Lingian grass is in the improvement stage. After success, I should be able to quickly improve my cultivation. More importantly, I have the behemoth Xuan insect behind me. When the holy infant fruit is about to mature, I can invite the two spiritual beasts in the sect to help support me. In addition, there are Yang King Feng who raises the ink-scaled dragon, Shenyi, the master of the Sinner Hall, and Jepu, the true disciple who raises the yin-yang cunfish. The three of them are at least in the middle stage of foundation building. They either value me very much, or owe me a favor, so they can be invited to come and take charge. Well, this support group should be strong enough. If it really doesn't work, when the holy infant fruit plant is about to mature, I will transplant it into the sect, and see if the cultivators behind it have the courage to come and look for spiritual fruits. Xuan thought secretly. The one who spread the holy infant fruit spiritual seed bait is most likely the skinny old man in the middle stage of foundation building. The possibility that there is a giant and cultivator behind him is very small. After all, if a giant and cultivator wants to harm a foundation building cultivator, he can just crush him directly. There is no need to go through so much trouble. Only when his own strength is not enough will he come up with such a trick. In this way, I'm in the open and the other person is in the dark. I'm still strong enough, and I can also invite the guardian spirit beast and powerful fellow disciples to take charge. Under this premise, compared with getting a 5th grade spiritual plant, the risk of luring and killing the cultivator behind is nothing. Xuan thought again and again, and after making sure that he had made every plan, he decided to continue planting the holy infant fruit spiritual seed. The 5th grade spiritual plant is still far from maturity, so it can be carefully arranged and planned slowly. Didn't you want to use the spiritual seed to fish? Didn't expect that you would be fished in return. Those who fish for others will always be fished by others. Xuan had a strong desire to kill the cultivator behind him who not only wanted to take advantage of him for free, but also wanted to take his life. He had always been the one who took advantage of others, but he didn't expect that today he would be pecked in the eye by a wild goose and become the target of freeloading. He made a decision in his heart and put his attention back on the spirit seed. The cultivation environment is quite suitable. There are many ghosts and resentments in this small courtyard, as well as white bones, demon eyes that are not closed, and many spiritual plants from the underworld. The spirit field in the small courtyard is rich in yin energy, which can fully guarantee the normal growth of the holy infant fruit. However, it will be a bit difficult to speed up the growth. The nourishment of the baby's blood, soul, and resentment sounds like a loss of virtue, which is extremely inconsistent with my identity as a disciple of a famous and upright sect. I can only think of another way. In the early stage, I can arrange tasks in the general affairs hall and let those outer disciples who like to fight life and death to hunt evil cultivators and obtain the evil things on them. He had a preliminary plan for how to cultivate the holy infant fruit in his heart. The spiritual power surged, controlling the yin energy in the yard to condense into an air mass, which turned into strands of fine spiritual rain, and infiltrated into the holy infant fruit spirit seed. In the embryo-shaped spirit seed, the dry and skinny gray-black baby seemed to stretch out a little, but when you look again, you can only see a gray-black mass. The gray-black aura expands and contracts, as if something is nurtured in it. After nourishing the holy infant fruit spirit seed, Xuan took out the giant scorpion corpse from the storage bag, and the fiery red spirit pattern appeared on the red flame sword, carefully cutting the 6-eyed red iron scorpion corpse into pieces. Chapter 207 The Fetus. He carefully scraped off the 3 pairs of blood-red pupils of the 6-eyed red iron scorpion. Sensing the approach of the best monster pupils, dozens of pupils on the dry and old bark of the 100 pupils strange tree changed at the same time, trying to open their eyes and look at the giant scorpion pupils, ready to move. The monster pupils that had been left had been almost absorbed, leaving only dry and tiny eyeballs hanging on the bark pupils. When the yin energy passed by, they swayed back and forth, like gray and white lanterns that had been abandoned for many years. Under the stimulation of the fresh pupils of the 4th grade 6-eyed red iron scorpion, the dried monster pupils fell one after another, smashed on the ground and became fragments, and the nearly transparent tentacles retreated back into the monster pupils like lightning. Lu Xuan placed a giant scorpion pupil flat on his index finger, and his thumb popped it out like a marble, and the pupil flew towards the dry and old bark. Suddenly, dozens of tiny transparent tentacles shot out, pulling the giant scorpion's pupils toward the bark pupils. After several rounds of competition, they finally reached a delicate balance. Several tentacles near the pupils pierced into the pupils from all directions, absorbing nutrients from the pupils of the 4th grade monster beast. Lu Xuan flicked the 6 giant scorpions' pupils to various parts of the trunk of the 100 Eyes Weirdwood, causing nearby pupils to scramble for them. He then came to the thorn bones, where the white bone-like thorns were tightly attached to the huge barbarian armadox skeleton. Countless slender bone spurs penetrated deeply into the skeleton, as if they were about to merge with the skeleton. After being absorbed by the thorn bones for such a long time, the 3rd grade barbarian armadox skeleton has a tendency to become brittle. Lu Xuan sighed as he looked at the huge skeleton that was apparently intact but actually hollow. The 4th grade 6-eyed red iron scorpion skeleton, although not as big as the barbarian armored bull, is 1 grade higher and can be fully cultivated into thorn bones. Although the value of the 6-eyed red iron scorpion skeleton is lower than its venom, poison needles, and 3 pairs of strange eyes, it is a 4th grade monster after all, so there should be no problem in cultivating the second half of the thorn bones. Lu Xuan cut out the monster meat from the giant scorpion corpse and buried it under the 3rd grade poisonous shuttlewood. The monster meat contains a lot of toxins, which is suitable for cultivating poisonous shuttlewood and promoting its growth. The growth momentum of these underworld spiritual plants in the yard is quite good. There are only a few ghosts in the ghost bell, but now with the nourishment of the ghost beads, the resentment can greatly increase the yin qi in a short time. After nourishment, 1 ghost is equivalent to 3 before, which is barely enough. There is no need to worry about the subsequent growth of the thorn bone. The poisonous shuttlewood can also grow normally in such an environment. As for the 100-eyed strangewood, you can post another task to collect monster eyes in the general affairs hall and bring it next time. As for the holy infant fruit, it can only maintain basic growth needs at present. Lu Xuan thought secretly in his heart as he scanned the many spiritual plants in the small courtyard. He did not stay for long, opened the 1000 illusion cloud smoke array, and after confirming that it was correct, he flew to the sect. In the Xianjian sect, Lu Xuan passed through the large arrays with his identity nameplate, and his heart was extremely peaceful. It's better to stay in the sect, with a big tree to enjoy the shade, and there is no need to worry about any evil tricks. Just farmed quietly. As he sighed, the mountain under his command was already in sight. Lu Xuan couldn't help but let out a long roar, and his figure turned into a floating light, and he arrived at the foot of the mountain in a few breaths. My fellow men, I'm back. Threads of silver lines appeared and disappeared from time to time. Lu Xuan activated the streamer array and entered the mountain. A light green figure flew over quickly and landed on top of Lu Xuan's head. The light green broad wings flapped Lu Xuan's shoulders from time to time, revealing a strong sense of joy. Lu Xuan felt a familiar soft touch on his head and couldn't help but pinch it a few times. The wind falcon hummed twice and then came down from his head. On its slender neck, a thick, fiery red necklace was firmly hanging. Sensing Lu Xuan's gaze, the necklace squirmed, and the Lihojao, with a slightly raised head, turned its head and looked at Lu Xuan with a pair of pale red crystal clear eyes. I haven't seen you for a while, and you've grown so big. Lu Xuan noticed that the young dragon had grown from 1.5 feet when it was born to about 2 feet. He sighed and took out the fire-type monster meat that Lihojao loved from his storage bag. You have it too, you have it too. Seeing the young wind falcon staring at him eagerly, he quickly took out a few more pieces of wine-type monster meat. Not far away, in the dense forest, the leaves rustled, and the cloud-stepping lynx squatted on a giant tree on the periphery, with its head slightly raised, and a pair of green eyes glanced at Lu Xuan lightly. Only the 2 tufts of grey-white hair on its head and the short tail swinging behind it showed that it was not at peace. Lu Xuan had long known the arrogant nature of the cloud-stepping lynx. He came under the tree amid its rough and low roar. He grabbed 2 pieces of monster meat and threw them hard. The cloud-stepping lynx's thick paws, like white clouds, suddenly swept across and firmly grasped the monster meat. Haha. Lu Xuan laughed loudly. Seeing the three little children's joy, he returned to the courtyard in a few leaps. After a short rest, he began to inspect the spiritual field and check the growth of the spiritual plants. Well, one sword grass is fully mature. When passing by the two sword grasses given by Shenyi, the master of Sinner Hall, Lu Xuan, as usual, focused his mind on the straight sword-like plants, and unexpectedly found that the progress bar under one sword grass was fully drawn. These two sword grasses were planted not long after the Liaguangmu and Yunhui were planted, so the time between their maturity was not far apart. Lu Xuan wrapped his palm with spiritual power, tightly grasped the sword grass shaped like a sword, and slowly pulled it out. On the grey-black sword grass, tiny sword key waved and stirred, hitting Lu Xuan's palm, causing a slight hissing sound. The root of the sword grass has a strange shape. At first glance, it looks like a hilt. When holding it in the hand, there is a natural sense of coordination. With his mind focused, a thought flashed through Lu Xuan's mind. Swordgrass, a second-grade spiritual plant, is shaped like a sword blade. It is nourished by sword ki for a long time. It is a natural sword weapon. It can be used directly, or used to refine flying swords. The sword grass of high quality. The spiritual environment of the sect is much better than that of the market. Lu Xuan remembered that the sword grass cultivated in Linyang market was of good quality. In a purer and richer spiritual environment, and under the nourishment of the Zhengjin sword out of the great accomplishment realm, the quality of this sword grass is now even higher. He thought in his heart, and looked at the ground. At the pit, left by the sword grass, a white light ball flickered slightly, waiting for him to pick it up. Lu Xuan gently touched the surface of the light ball, and countless light points on the light ball condensed into a lightsaber, and suddenly, it flowed into Lu Xuan's body. Then, a thought emerged in his mind. Harvest a second-grade sword grass, and obtain a third-grade sword embryo. A small golden sword appeared in front of him, like a fish, swimming around Lu Xuan flexibly. Chapter 208 Wind and Thunder Sword Grass. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the golden sword that was swimming freely in front of him, and a thought flashed through his mind. Sword embryo, a third-grade treasure, is an excellent material for refining high-level flying swords. After being smelted into a flying sword, it can greatly improve the spirituality of the flying sword. High-grade sword embryos can also breed magic weapons. Sword embryo? Lu Xuan took the golden sword in his hand. The sword trembled slightly, and tried to break free. The golden sword was made of unknown material. It clearly had a substantial body, but it felt unreal when held in the hand. Greatly improving the spirituality of the flying sword means that the flying sword can be controlled more easily and freely, and even a set of flying swords or even a sword formation can be controlled. High-grade sword embryos can also breed magic weapons. Lu Xuan muttered to himself in disbelief. Sword grass is indeed the core foundation of the heavenly sword sect. The light ball reward it brings is extraordinary. In addition, the quality of this sword grass is top grade, and it unexpectedly opened a rare treasure like the sword embryo. The two sword grasses that were cultivated to maturity, one brought him the third grade Zunlei sword pill, and the other brought him the third grade treasure sword embryo. For a second grade spiritual plant, the light ball reward is extremely generous. He was therefore more determined to display his spiritual plant skills in the sword hall. As long as the ordinary or advanced sword grass distributed by the sword hall is cultivated well, then you can avoid getting a steady stream of different sword grass spirit seeds, forming a snowball trend. When the sword grass in the scabbard is nourished and stimulated, I will put you in it and take good care of the fetus. Lu Xuan chuckled and put the golden sword into a black sword box. The other sword grass facing each other from a distance has also entered the mature stage, and the faint progress bar below is about to be filled. Although it is ready to be picked, in order to maximize the quality of the sword grass and the light ball reward it brings, Lu Xuan suppressed his inner impulse, and his spiritual power surged, and a stream of Zhengjin sword energy sank into the straight sword grass. After nourishing the sword grass, Lu Xuan continued to inspect the various parts of the spiritual field. The previously successfully induced mutant firefly grass has entered the seed condensation stage. After trying to pick a mutant firefly grass, Lu Xuan gave up the idea of getting a mature plant and only wanted to improve it successfully as soon as possible. 22 ice-type mutant firefly grasses finally condensed more than 200 mutant spirit seeds, and 8 fire-type mutant firefly grasses condensed much fewer mutant spirit seeds, only about 80. In addition, the 800 ordinary firefly grass spirit seeds harvested previously were specially treated, and Xuan used them all for stimulation and induction. As long as he planted the spirit seeds, he could tell whether the induction was successful, so he could quickly screen out the mutant spirit seeds, saving a lot of time. After several rounds of this, the degree of mutation of the spiritual seeds obtained became higher and higher, and it was natural to improve and obtain higher grade spiritual firefly grass. Because all the spiritual firefly grass spiritual seeds were used by him for experiments, it was extremely rare that there was no spiritual firefly grass planted in the spiritual fields on the mountain. The speed of Xuan's cultivation improvement slowed down a lot, and he could only feel the improvement of his spiritual power slightly after practicing for a period of time. He didn't care much about this. After all, the slow improvement now was for the rapid progress in the future, and this sacrifice was nothing. Besides, I can have such a cultivation today, all thanks to my hard work every day. The light bulb brought by the spiritual firefly grass only played a little auxiliary role. Xuan thought lightly. On the mountain, the growth momentum of all the spiritual plants was quite good. The third grade fairy peach in the remote corner quietly grew a lot taller. At first glance, the pink and white trunk actually revealed a thin waist and long legs. The pink peach leaves became more and more lush, and a faint miasma flowed under the tree. Xuan looked at the fairy peach, as if he was watching a young girl gradually become graceful, and had a strange idea of cultivation in his heart. He had no expression on his face, and a purification spell hit his temple. The clear and misty spiritual power flowed through his body, and he instantly entered the sage mode. The graceful girl's true form was revealed, and the trunk and branches of the fairy peach were restored to their true appearance. Not far away, the sword-raising gourd clinging to many second-hand flying swords had grown a small gourd. The gourd was light green, and it swayed gently under the breeze. A very small sword sound could be heard faintly from inside. The third-grade jade scale fruit planted in the stone pile has produced many flowers. The flowers seem to be composed of layers of thin jade pieces, with a strange beauty that is both soft and hard. The fourth grade black insect vine is also growing very well. The insect chambers of the hidden winged cicada, black beetle, and silver-lined mantis are cleverly integrated together to form the body of the black insect vine. The rest of the ice radish fruit, the flame fruit, etc., have also grown a lot. The whole mountain was thriving and full of vitality. Xuan took a round of inspection and returned to the courtyard with satisfaction. Feeling happy physically and mentally, he specially prepared a delicious meal for the young Fenghan and the stepping cloudlings, which touched the 3 children who had been eating the original monster meat recently. After cleaning up the tableau, Xuan entered the room and grabbed the Yangtze sword sheath. After the sword light continued to hit the Zunli sword pill, the last sword grass spirit seed had been nourished in the ancient sword sheath for quite a long time. It was time to review the results. He grabbed the tail of the sword sheath, with the crack facing down, and shook it. A slender sword-like spirit seed slid out easily. Compared with when he first entered, the sword grass spirit seed has changed a lot. There was a faint black wind lingering around the sword grass spirit seed. Occasionally, extremely small arcs could be found on the surface of the spirit seed jumping and disappearing into the air. This is the first time I've seen such an obvious change. Xuan stared at the mutated sword grass spirit seed in his hand and sighed from the bottom of his heart. Whether it was the large number of induced spirit firefly grass spirit seeds or the other sword grass spirit seeds stimulated by the sword energy of the red flame sword, none of them showed such a huge change as the spirit seed in front of him. He couldn't help but feel a little more expectant in his heart. He grabbed the ancient sword sheath and quickly floated to an empty spiritual field area. The earth drawing technique was performed, and the structure of the spiritual soil under his feet changed slightly. A long and thin crack appeared, just in time to include the mutated sword grass spirit seed. Xuan's mind was focused on the sword grass spirit seed in the shallow layer of the spiritual soil. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Wind and Thunder Sword Grass, a 3rd grade spiritual plant, shaped like a sword blade, a natural sword weapon, with a trace of wind and thunder power, is an excellent material for refining flying swords of corresponding attributes. When cultivating, stimulating with wind and thunder sword energy and sword intent can promote the growth of the plant. Wind and Thunder Sword Grass, a 3rd grade spiritual plant. It was successfully improved in one go. Xuan exclaimed. He didn't expect that the 2nd grade sword grass, which started later and had a higher grade, would be upgraded to the 3rd grade in one step with the firefly grass. It seems that in the future, whether it is a thick and long flying sword, a small and cute sword grass spiritual seed, or an invisible sword energy, I will usually have to insert you for a while. He looked at the ancient and mottled Xuan sword sheath in his hand, and couldn't help thinking in his heart. Chapter 209 I'd rather spend a day with you. The ancient scabbard seemed to understand what Xuan said, and trembled slightly, as if it was extremely resistant to the so-called insertion of the flying sword. Excited, right? It must be excited, right? Don't worry, I will definitely satisfy you. Xuan thought with some evil taste. This Xuan scabbard that was accidentally obtained from the secret realm was unknown, and it was more extraordinary than he imagined. Before, the 2nd grade red flame sword was inserted into the scabbard for a period of time. The remaining sword intent and the scabbard nourished and stimulated the sword grass spirit seed, and obtained the fire sword grass. Under the combined effect of the sword light and the Zunlui sword pill and the scabbard, a 3rd grade wind and thunder sword grass spirit seed was obtained. This success rate is really scary. When inducing the spirit firefly grass spirit seed before, the success rate was only about 20% when the spirit seed was repeatedly stimulated. This Xuan scabbard. Xuan sighed. Although it takes longer to stimulate the sword grass spirit seed, and it is necessary to frequently inject the Zunlui sword light during stimulation, the whole process is much more troublesome, but compared with obtaining a 3rd grade mutant spirit seed, this is nothing. He placed the grey-black spirit seed with black wind and electric arcs in the spirit field. The spirit power surged, and the Zunlui sword pill in the Danshan slowly turned, and a fine sword light hit the spirit field. Under the control of Xuan's spiritual consciousness, the sword light continued to differentiate, and strands of sword intent like thin lines penetrated into the spirit seed of the wind and thunder sword grass. Xuan's mind was focused on the spirit seed of the wind and thunder sword grass, and he was relieved to confirm that it was in good condition. Although he had cultivated the 3rd grade improved sword grass, Xuan was not in a hurry to present it to the sword hall. After all, the existence of Xuan sword sheath should not be known to outsiders. After learning the method of refining sword grass spirit seeds from the sword hall, and cultivating the wind and thunder sword grass spirit seeds on a large scale, he would report it to Shenyi of the sword hall. A few days later, he inspected the spirit field according to his daily routine. In the spirit field, there was another mature spirit plant, the 2nd grade streamer wood. Not long after entering the sect, he used spirit stones to buy 2 2nd grade streamer wood and yunhui. The plant that had the progress bar fully filled before had obtained the flowing light talisman array, and today the remaining plant was also fully mature. The quality was slightly inferior to the previous one, but it was good, which Xuan was satisfied with. He gently touched the slightly flickering white light ball on the ground. A thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 2nd grade flowing light wood, and obtain a 3rd grade golden hair talisman pen. A talisman pen made of golden wolf hair appeared in Xuan's hand. The conductivity of the talisman pen is very good. When the spiritual power is attached to it, it can be freely wielded without any stagnation, which can slightly increase the success rate of making talismans. Xuan was devoted to cultivating spiritual plants, and had no plans to learn a new skill for the time being, so he put the golden hair talisman pen into the storage bag. After inspecting the spiritual field, Xuan returned to the yard. It was time to celebrate the improvement of the 3rd grade wind and thunder sword grass. He took out the fresh monster meat, various spiritual fruits, and spiritual wine that he had bought from Jianmen Town from the Sheng bag, and placed crab spirit paste snacks. The charcoal made of low-level spiritual wood, with a flick of the finger, a basin-sized fireball quickly burned the charcoal red. Dozens of broken silver blade fragments flew together, cut the monster meat, and smeared various seasonings. Suddenly, the yard was filled with a strong fragrance. A light green ball kept flapping its wings and rushed from the top of the mountain. The wind falcon landed in the yard, and together with a little gyro around its neck, it stared at the sizzling monster meat on the shelf, swallowing and spitting. The stepping cloud lynx came to the yard at some point, and its green eyes glanced at the roasting monster meat. It walked gracefully, and only the two tufts of grey and white hair on the tip of its ears that kept jumping revealed its inner desire. The fragrance became stronger and stronger, as if it was about to spread outside the flowing light array. Xuan sensed the movement of the array and looked forward. In the sky above the mountain peaks, strands of silver lines appeared. When they were about to gather together, a white phoenix seemed to come from the void and landed gracefully in the courtyard. Then, a jade-like delicate monkey turned into a white light, rushed out directly from the countless silver lines, and stopped behind the white phoenix. Friends from afar, welcome. A smile appeared on Xuan's lips. It will take a little time to prepare the monster meat. You can try the spiritual fruit and spiritual wine first. I brought them in from outside the sect, he said softly to Xuan Bailun and Bayu King Schnape. After a while, pieces of monster meat that were crispy on the outside and tender on the inside were ready. Xuan cut them and evenly distributed them to several greedy spirit beasts. The phoenix and the little monkey, who had always only eaten raw materials, had never seen such a scene. Monster meat of various flavors was sent into the stomach, and the fragrance, freshness, spicy taste gave their taste buds an unprecedented experience. Xuan worked hard to roast the monster meat, and from time to time handed over a spiritual fruit and a cup of spiritual wine to relieve the greasiness and change the taste. After feeding the spirit beasts, he could sense the detailed status of the spirit beasts and understand every subtle need of them. Therefore, he took extremely careful and thoughtful care of the phoenix and the white ape, allowing the two spirit beasts with great potential to feel extremely happy physically and mentally. Zio thought of the simple style and repeated ingredients of the spirit fruit and monster meat he usually ate, and compared it with the supreme delicacy and thoughtful service here by Xuan. He suddenly felt like swallowing chaff, and looked at Xuan with different eyes. The sect has eaten meat for many years, why not have a happy day here with you? The phoenix and the white ape had the same idea in their hearts. After eating and drinking, the spirit beasts all lay lazily on the ground with their round bellies. Xuan came to the phoenix and the white ape. Is the monster meat taste good today? Seeing the two beasts nodding confirmation, his smile became even bigger. If you like it, you can come often. We are all friends anyway, so there is no need to be so polite. Just come over, and you will have delicious food. Xuan persuaded him step by step, his tone full of temptation. The phoenix and the white ape were surprised and excited, and they were full of longing to taste such delicious food in the future. Friends are like this. If I have delicious food, I will share it with you, and if you have delicious food, you will also share it with me. Not only can we share happiness, but also hardships. No matter who encounters difficulties, we will try our best to help. Don't you think so? The phoenix still lay on the ground, with its neck raised high, and nodded. The white ape stood up straight, looked at Xuan shyly, and nodded gently in agreement. If I encounter someone bullying me, and looking for a fight with me, will you help me? The word fight seemed to trigger the blood in the deepest part of the white ape's heart. His eyes suddenly turned red, and his aura changed from shyness to violence and ferocity. It growled, fumbled in its white jade head, pulled out a silver white hair as hard as jade, and handed it to Xuan. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210, The Dying Beast. If the spiritual power activates this hair, it can summon you as quickly as possible. Xuan focused his mind on the white ape, and learned that the silver white hair it sent was extraordinary. Under the activation of spiritual power, the white jade sky supporting ape within a certain range could sense it at the first time, and would come to assist Xuan at the fastest speed. Thank you for giving me such a great gift. Xuan touched the white ape's head, and felt a cold and hard touch on his fingers. He knew that the white jade sky supporting ape in front of him who looked extremely shy and timid, actually advocated violence, and was fierce and aggressive. There was a certain degree of friendship in giving him the hair, but more of it was that he wanted to have a good fight. The White Phoenix also came over and chirped towards Lu Xuan, promising that if Lu Xuan encountered any problems, it would come to help him as soon as possible, and also invited him to visit the secret realm where the guardian spirit beast was. Okay, I will definitely come if I have a chance. Lu Xuan was also somewhat curious about the place where the high-grade monster beasts in the sect lived, and promised Xuan Bailuan. The two spirit beasts did not stay for long. One turned into an illusory light spot and passed directly through the talisman array. The other turned into a white stream of light and rushed out first before the talisman array was completely activated. It was getting late. Lu Xuan cleaned up the yard and meditated for an hour. Under the operation of the great 5-element gong, the pure spiritual energy in the mountain continued to flow in and merged into Lu Xuan's danshan. I practiced, but it seems that I didn't practice. He felt the spiritual liquid gathered in the danshan, and there was no change. Therefore, he had a better understanding of his own talent. The next morning, he got up early, patrolled the spiritual field, and after carefully inspecting and caring for all the spiritual plants, he found a spirit crane outside the mountain and flew to the General Affairs Hall. In front of the General Affairs Hall, after a period of time, it was still very lively, and many Kigan fellows came in and out. Lu Xuan entered the hall, came behind the light curtain, found a deacon of the General Affairs Hall, and laid out two tasks. One was to collect the pupils of monsters, to meet the growth needs of the 100 pupils Weirdwood. The growth conditions of the 4th grade spiritual plants were much more demanding. The pupils he had collected from the previous tasks were not enough for a while. Even if he had just placed a 4th grade giant scorpion with 6 eyes, it could only meet the needs of a few pupils on the tree trunk. He wrote down the detailed rewards of the tasks, based on the grade, rarity, and strange abilities of the monster's pupils. Then, he issued a task to collect various insect larvae and eggs. The insects should preferably be the type that shed their skin and shells, so that they can grow together with a black insect vine. The 3 insect chambers on the black insect vine, the hidden winged cicada, the black beetle, and the silver-lined mantis, gradually became incapable as the plant continued to grow, and could not meet the normal growth needs of the black insect vine. After obtaining the 4th grade 6-eyed red iron scorpion skeleton, the thornbone no longer had to worry. As for the holy infant fruit, Lu Xuan did not dare to arrange a task in the sect to collect the essence, blood, soul, and resentment of the infant. If he really tried it, even if the deacon of the General Affairs Hall approved it, it would immediately attract the attention of the sect's higher-level monks. After assigning the task, Lu Xuan walked out from behind the light curtain and came to the hall. Wherever he passed, the key training monks he saw greeted Lu Xuan with respect, and Lu Xuan smiled and nodded in return. Because he had been staying in the sect to cultivate spiritual plants and raise spiritual beasts, he rarely interacted with other fellow disciples, let alone exploring secret realms and looking for opportunities together. Therefore, the number of monks he knew during the 2 or 3 years of key training was very small, and there were only a few who had some friendship. When passing through the light curtain, familiar words floated on the huge screen, and many monks looked at them intently, choosing the tasks that suited them. Seeing this, Lu Xuan couldn't help but feel a little emotional. After entering the sect, he frequently came to the General Affairs Hall, took on many tasks related to spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, and earned a lot of spiritual stones and sword seals. Among the spiritual plants planted in the spiritual fields, several were obtained in this way, which laid a good foundation for his farming career in the sect. It's a pity that, now that I have been promoted to the foundation building stage, it's not good to compete with fellow key training disciples as a master uncle for tasks. Otherwise, how can you get your turn? Lu Xuan sneered in his heart. There were occasional spiritual plant tasks on the light curtain, but if he accepted the tasks assigned by fellow key training disciples as a disciple in the foundation building stage, it would be a bit unreasonable if it was spread out, so he had no choice but to give up. Fortunately, after becoming an inner disciple, in addition to the huge benefits, when he just broke through the realm, the sect will also give him a sword seal every month. At the same time, after entering the sword hall, He will also get a fixed number of sword seals every month. Even if he doesn't do the tasks, he can get more than 100 sword seals every month, which can be said to be a generous reward. Lu Xuan recalled the past glorious years, came to the outside of the General Affairs Hall, called a spiritual crane, and flew straight into the sky. When he was about to reach the mountain where he was, suddenly, he heard a ethereal and distant deer cry. After hearing it, the spiritual crane under him unconsciously slowed down, and the spiritual energy in his body quietly became more active. After a few breaths, a giant deer 2 meters tall came from afar. Where its 4 hooves landed, layers of green ripples were rippling. Wherever the ripples passed, spiritual plants grew wildly, revealing strong vitality. That old deer is equivalent to the Giandan realm. Lu Xuan had seen this giant deer once before. It was called Xuan deer, a 5th grade spiritual beast. It was said to be raised by a deceased Giandan cultivator in the sect, and had been guarding the sect for many years. Compared with the last time he met it, Xuan deer seemed to be in a worse state. The pair of white jade antlers on its head had dimmed a lot, faintly grayish white. The strands of hair on its body were like weeds, dry and thin, revealing a faint dead air. The vigorous vitality brought by the giant deer along the way seemed extremely contradictory, and formed a strong contrast with its own dilapidated and dead body. The giant deer quickly passed by Lu Xuan and its figure disappeared into the sky. Only distant cries came from the distant horizon. Even though Lu Xuan didn't raise a giant deer, he could hear the deep longing in its voice. He sighed softly, and let the spirit crane carry him back to the mountain. A world full of greenery, countless tall spiritual trees, thick vines covering everything around. The whole area is filled with a strong and clear spiritual breath. The Xuan deer that Lu Xuan had seen before was lying weakly in a huge net woven automatically by vines. The physical condition of this Xuan deer is getting worse and worse. A middle-aged monk wearing a green robe and with 4 eyes stood in the sky, looking at the giant deer below expressionlessly. The lifespan is exhausted, and the end is coming. It's time to prepare for its funeral. Next to the middle-aged monk, a handsome young man said lightly. From time to time, there were phantoms of sword energy swimming around the young man, and the phantoms changed in thousands of ways, showing the forms of various strange beasts and insects. The obsession is too deep. If it is not handled properly, it may cause adverse effects. The middle-aged monk suddenly opened his 4 eyes, and everything flashed in the depths of his eyes, and he said indifferently. Chapter 211 Kingling's Secret Realm, Giandan Invitation. This Xuan deer has a very deep obsession. If it dies now, it is likely to affect the entire secret realm, and there is even a slight possibility that it will turn into an evil spirit. The middle-aged cultivator said with a stern expression, and there was no emotion in his 2 pairs of pupils. His name is Lei Su. He and the handsome young man are both Giandan Zenran of Xianjian sect. After receiving the news that Xuan deer is about to die, they came together to deal with the aftermath. The other Giandan Zenran in the sect are either in seclusion, stationed in a blessed place, or wandering around, and their whereabouts are unknown. Therefore, only the 2 of them have time to come. Xuan deer is a 5th grade demon beast with strength equivalent to the early stage of Giandan. It is a guardian spirit beast of Xianjian sect. Because it is very compatible with the secret realm, it has been guarding the secret realm for many years. Then what do you mean, senior brother Lei? The speed of the sword shadow beside the handsome young man increased by 3 points, as if it was about to be shot out from some illusory world. The 4-eyed middle-aged cultivator looked at the aging Xuan deer in the giant vine net, and a spiritual barrier quietly enveloped the 2 of them, isolating them from the outside world. Rather than dying like this, and leaving troubles behind with obsessions in your heart, it is better to end it now, and avoid affecting the secret realm. The materials on the 5th grade monster can still be used in many ways. Ha! The handsome young man laughed angrily. Brother Lei, you practiced that technique of eliminating passion and purifying desire. Did your brain become damaged? The Xuan deer is the sect's guardian spirit beast. It has been diligently guarding the sect in the secret realm for hundreds of years. When it was in the sect, we were not even born yet. You, on the other hand, actually have such ruthless thoughts. Brother Lei, I think you only have 100 or 200 years left to live. You have been in the cultivation world for so long, and have dealt with countless monsters and evil spirits. There is also a low possibility of alienation when you die. Why not avoid this risk and help you end your life? It just so happens that your two pairs of heterochromatic eyes have many strange features. I guess they are very popular with other brothers. The handsome young man said with a sneer. If I can be of some use to the sect before I die, I will be happy to do so. Not only these two pairs of eyes, but also my flesh, blood, spirit, and treasures left behind can be presented to the sect. I think this King Xuan will have the same idea as me. Lei Su said lightly, as if his life and death were nothing in front of the interests of the sect. Okay, no need to say anything more. The handsome young man Gu Jiankang waved his hand and scolded. I don't care what senior brother Lei thinks or does, but this King Xuan must die well. As for the deep obsession in its heart, find a way to resolve it. If it really can't be resolved, then I will stay here and wait for the old deer to die. I will see how the obsession will change. If it is really bad for the secret realm and the sect, I will kill it directly. Gu Jiankang's handsome face revealed a strong murderous intent, and he said decisively to the four-eyed middle-aged monk. A sword light shot out from the illusory sword Shadow Time, turning into a tiger, smashing the spiritual barrier. You guys, go to the sect, or other sects, and find a few cultivators who are good at communicating and treating spirit beasts to see if you can find the obsession of the King Xuan deer. Junior Brother Zhu, after you are promoted to a true disciple, this small kingling secret realm will be under your control on weekdays. Be prepared to activate the secret realm protection formation at any time. The handsome young man Gu Jiankang instructed the group of foundation building cultivators behind him. Yes, Uncle Gu. The one who responded to him was a female cultivator with a cold and elegant temperament. The female cultivator's long black hair poured down like a waterfall, swaying gently, as if slightly resonating with the countless spirit plants in the entire green world. Uncle Gu, I have someone I want to recommend to you. This person has just been promoted to an inner disciple, and is not well known. I'm afraid that other brothers don't know him well enough, and will miss him. Behind the handsome young man, Jepu, one of the 17 true disciples, hesitated for a moment, walked forward, saluted Gu Jiankang and said, Junior Brother Jet, are you sure? He has just been promoted to an inner sect disciple, which means he is only at the early stage of foundation building. King Xuan is a 5th grade monster beast. The difference between the two is not small. Gu Jiankang asked doubtfully. Reporting to Uncle Master, although that person has just broken through to the foundation building stage, he usually spends a lot of time and energy on cultivating spiritual plants and beasts. Therefore, his ability to control beasts should not be underestimated. As far as I know, when he was still in the key training stage, he helped junior brother Yang Qingfeng, who was raising a black-scaled dragon, to solve the dietary problem of a young dragon, and even discovered the hidden bloodline of the young dragon. It was for this reason that junior brother Yang recommended him to help me solve the fertility problem of the pair of yin-yang cunfish. Oh, how did he do it? Gu Jiankang knew that the true disciple Jepu in front of him raised a pair of ancient beasts yin-yang cunfish, and he became somewhat interested in the inner sect disciple who helped solve the fertility problem of cunfish. He asked me to simulate the breeding environment required by the corresponding cunfish, condense the essence one after another, combine them in vitro, and then send them into the two cunfish. Jepu briefly summarized it. This idea is quite unconventional. Then you go and invite him to come and see the problem of King Xuan with others. Gu Jiankang heard this, and became interested in the inner disciples mentioned by Jepu. Brother Yang, you hurriedly called me out. What's the matter? Some of the spiritual plants in my spiritual field have not been cultivated today. Lu Xuan came out of the mountain and looked at Yang Qingfeng standing in a small boat in the air and said with some dissatisfaction, Brother Lu, there is no time to explain. Get on the boat quickly. Yang Qingfeng pulled Lu Xuan onto the flying boat, and the spiritual power surged wildly. The flying boat under his feet was like an arrow from a string, shooting into the sky at a high speed. Brother Lu, forgive my rudeness, but I was just too anxious. Yang Qingfeng said to Lu Xuan in the howling wind. What on earth made senior brother so anxious? Lu Xuan looked curious. It's like this, there is a 5th grade King Xuan in the sect. Junior brother, you know about it, right? Seeing Lu Xuan nodded in confirmation, Yang Qingfeng continued. Recently, the king Xuan deer is about to pass away, but there is a deep obsession in its body. The sect wants to invite a few fellow disciples who are good at communicating with spirit beasts to see if they can resolve it. Senior brother Jepu recommended you, junior brother Lu, to a giant and uncle. Jidden uncle? Lu Xuan's tone was full of surprise. Giant and cultivators are considered high-level combat power in the Xianjian sect. He didn't expect that he would have close contact with one day and even have to help solve a big problem. That's right. But you don't have to worry, junior brother Lu. It's a great achievement if we can solve it, and we won't blame you if we can't. Okay, we've arrived at the Kingling secret realm. The two giant and Zenran and a group of senior brothers are all in the secret realm. Yang Qingfeng put away the flying boat magic weapon and took out a green token made of vines from his waist. With the attraction of spiritual power, the token turned into a green light and wrapped the two of them into a chaotic space. Chapter 212. An old friend comes. Lu Xuan adjusted his posture and landed safely from the sky. What he saw was a lush green landscape with towering spiritual trees all around and countless dark green vines entangled together. Occasionally, delicate and small green fairies could be seen shuttling among them. As he breathed, a clear and spiritual breath flowed into his mouth and nose. After merging into his body, he could feel that every muscle in his body was purified by this clear and spiritual breath, and his vitality was unprecedentedly vigorous. This is the Kingling secret realm, a small secret realm controlled by the sect, used to cultivate some rare high-grade spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. Lu Xuan was observing, and Jepu came behind him without knowing when, looking at him with a smile. Senior brother Jen. Lu Xuan bowed his head and saluted, greeting him. Junior brother Lu, thank you for coming here this time. I believe junior brother Yang has explained the details to you on the way. Please come with me to the place where the King Xuan deer rests and recuperates. Please lead the way, senior brother. Lu Xuan said with a serious expression. It was related to the sect's 5th grade spirit beast and the giant and cultivator, so he could not be careless. He and Yang Qingfeng followed Jepu and soon arrived at the destination. Jepu brought Lu Xuan to the two giant and Zenran of Gujiankang. Junior brother Lu, this is Uncle Gu and Uncle Lei. Two uncles, this is the junior brother Lu Xuan I mentioned. Jepu introduced them to each other. Lei Su swept his eyes over Lu Xuan's body, and Lu Xuan suddenly felt that he was seeing clearly from the inside out. Although he only had 4 pupils, the majesty he brought was far greater than the many evil pupils on the 100 pupils weird tree. He nodded to Lu Xuan with an indifferent expression. The handsome young man next to him smiled eagerly and said gently, I didn't expect that junior brother Lu is so young. I will need your help to check the obsession of King Xuan deer. Junior brother will do his best, Lu Xuan said solemnly. At this time, several fellow disciples who had established their foundation had already surrounded the King Xuan deer, who was still alive. They all looked solemn and carefully observed the giant deer that seemed to have fallen asleep. Junior brothers, you all have profound attainments in raising spiritual beasts. Today, I invited you here, mainly to find out the reason for King Xuan deer's obsession, and whether you can resolve it. The handsome young man Gu Jiankang said gently. Lu Xuan and the other 5 people looked at each other and decided to take turns to check the giant deer. A quiet and fair girl stepped forward first. Her hands floated above the giant deer's weed-like hair, and 2 soft white lights continued to extend and slowly penetrated into the giant deer's body. This is junior sister Liu. She has a unique talent in healing spirit beasts. Many injured and polluted spirit beasts in the sect were cured by her. The female cultivator with black hair stood behind Gu Jiankang and Lei Su and introduced in a low voice. Gu Jiankang nodded slightly to show his understanding. After a moment, a faint white light seeped out from the body of the giant deer and returned to the hands of the quiet and fair-skinned girl. She returned to the crowd, pursed her lips and shook her head. I checked every part of the body of the King Xuan deer. In addition to noticing that its body functions had deteriorated a lot, I did not find any other hidden diseases or traces of evil spirits invading and polluting. As for that obsession, I don't understand it even more. Heart disease needs heart medicine to cure. Thank you for troubling junior sister Liu. Gu Jiankang said to the quiet and fair-skinned girl with a smile, without any disappointment on his face. Next, 3 more foundation building fellows came forward to check. Although each of them had unique special skills in dealing with spirit beasts, after a detailed inspection, no abnormalities were found. Then, a tall and burly monk strode to the front of the Xuan deer. The monk was naked from the waist up, with muscular bulges and many strange lines on his chest and back. The lines changed quietly, forming the figures of spirit beasts, leaping on the skin, as if they would jump out of the skin at any time. Gu Jiankang's eyes flashed with expectation. He knew a lot about this burly monk. He had had many dealings with him when he was in the foundation building stage. The monk was in the late foundation building stage, good at communicating and taming spirit beasts. He usually practiced hard in the sect and was very low-key, so his reputation was not well known. He came to the front of the Xuan deer, his lips kept moving, and it was unknown what he was saying to the Xuan deer. The giant deer struggled to open his eyes, looked at the tall and burly monk, and was unable to close them, allowing the monk to speak eloquently, and no longer had any reaction. After a long time, the tall and burly monk saw that there was no effect, and his expression did not change. He came to Gu Jiankang and others. I have been communicating with the Xuan deer spirit beast for a long time, and I roughly understand that it has great regrets in its heart. As for the specific reasons for the regrets, that is unclear. Perhaps only the senior of the sect who once raised it can understand its obsession in detail. Gu Jiankang heard this. His expression was neither sad nor happy, and he nodded gently. I see. Please rest for a while on the side, nephew Shi. The successive failures did not make him feel much disappointed. Lei Su on the side was still expressionless, without any signs of sarcasm. Among the 6 people, only Lu Xuan, who had the lowest cultivation, was left. He came to the true disciple who was in charge of the Kingling secret realm. Senior Sister Zhu, please give me a little spiritual fruit that Xuan deer usually eats. I will try to feed it first to narrow the distance between us. In order to understand the obsession of Xuan deer, it is necessary to complete the feeding process. He found a random reason and said to the female cultivator. The female cultivator nodded, and a light green spiritual fruit fell into Lu Xuan's hand. Xuan deer is at the end of its life, and its appetite has dropped sharply. 1 spiritual fruit is enough. Lu Xuan bowed and thanked, and came to the front of Xuan deer lying in the giant vine net, walked around to its front, and gently put the spiritual fruit into the slightly opened mouth of the giant deer. The giant deer sensed the spiritual power on the spiritual fruit, and swallowed it into its stomach with great difficulty. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the body of Xuan deer, and suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Xuan deer, a 5th grade spiritual beast, the guardian spiritual beast of the Xianjian sect, has a natural affinity for wood spiritual power. During the growth stage, it automatically masters high-level wood magic, which can accelerate the growth of spiritual plants. The lifespan is about to run out, and there is an obsession in my heart. When can I taste the 100-fruit spiritual juice you prepared again? Deep thoughts turned into real pictures, and appeared in Lu Xuan's mind. The young Xuan deer curled up into a ball, looking at the elegant monk who saved him from the monster in fear. Little guy, are you feeling better? Come and try the 100-fruit spiritual juice I brewed myself. This is my unique recipe. The Xuan deer grew bigger and bigger, running happily in the sect every day, and the spiritual plants under his feet grew wildly. Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect you to be so good at cultivating spiritual plants. Here, I'll reward you with a portion of freshly baked 100-fruit spiritual juice. Unknowingly, the Xuan deer became the sect's guardian spiritual beast. I'm going on a long journey this time. You take good care of the secret realm. When I come back, I'll make you 100-fruit spiritual juice, so that you can eat as much as you want. Perhaps because of his deep obsession, Lu Xuan, who could only perceive simple thoughts in the past, can see clear scenes today. He was silent for a while, and said to the female cultivator with a head full of black hair. Senior Sister Zhu, I need the following spiritual fruits. Various spiritual fruits were quickly delivered to Lu Xuan. He accurately prepared the amount according to his memory in the picture, added the specially brewed spiritual liquid, and kept pounding it. Finally, a bowl of fragrant fruit spiritual juice appeared in his hand. He held it carefully, and came to the front of Xuan deer. As if sensing the familiar taste deep in his memory, the weed-like hair on the King Xuan deer gradually became shiny and smooth. It struggled hard and wanted to get up. "Lie down obediently, I will feed you." A vague and soft voice sounded in its ears. Then, a ball of fragrant spiritual juice was sent into its mouth, flowing through its limbs and bones, moisturizing every part of its body. In a trance, it saw a familiar figure squatting in front of it, smiling and gently feeding it the fruit spiritual juice. It seemed like an old friend. Chapter 213 King Mu Yuan Qi. After tasting the 100 fruit spirit juice that had always haunted it, the obsession deep in the heart of the King Xuan deer broke free from its shackles and gradually dissipated. Its consciousness continued to sink, and it slowly closed its eyes and chirped softly. The ethereal and distant sound spread all the way to the depths of the secret realm. On its huge body, tufts of weed-like hair quickly turned green, automatically fell off, and merged into the vines under it. The light blue skin continued to fade, and in the end only countless blue light spots were left, vaguely piecing together the general shape of the King Xuan deer. The blue light spots seemed to have vitality, split into two, and the larger part spread silently, and merged into the thousands of spiritual plants in the secret realm. The remaining small part of the blue light spots gathered together, and turned into a light blue light ball, which instantly poured into Lu Xuan's body. Lu Xuan only felt that his body was completely surrounded by a cool breath, which fully nourished every part of his body, and enhanced his vitality. In the Danshan, a pigeon egg-sized light green ball stopped not far from the Zunli sword pill, floating up and down, and light green ripples spread out, soaking into Lu Xuan's meridians and bones. "That's the King Mu Yuan Qi, the original spiritual power of the King Xuan deer. I didn't expect it to give you so much before it died." While Lu Xuan was at a loss, the giant Zenran Gujiang beside him suddenly spoke. "That greenwood source energy is an extremely special and rare spiritual power. After it is absorbed into the body, it can continuously nourish your body and greatly enhance your physical self-healing ability. In addition, it can also increase your affinity for spiritual plants. When it acts on spiritual plants, it can speed up the growth of spiritual plants and absorb the spiritual energy of plants for supplementation. You successfully resolved the obsession of this 5th grade King Xuan deer. I believe that the greenwood source energy just now was its gift to you before it died. It's just that junior brother Lu really exceeded our expectations. He was able to easily solve this big problem with the spiritual juice, made from many spiritual fruits." Gu Jiangkan looked at Lu Xuan with some admiration in his eyes. Lei Su, a middle-aged cultivator with 4 eyes on the side, although he initially advocated dealing with the King Xuan deer in advance, after seeing Lu Xuan successfully solve it, there was a bit more appreciation in his 2 pairs of eyes. There is no spiritual beast problem that cannot be solved. If there is, then feed it. Lu Xuan recovered from the images that kept flashing through his mind and the surprise of getting the King Mu Yuan Qi, and sighed secretly. "Senior Lu gave me such a great gift before his death. I really feel ashamed," he said with a somewhat panicked tone. Gu Jiangkan seemed to see the worry in his heart, and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, you can actually get the gift of King Xuan Lu. That is your opportunity, and others cannot snatch it. And you can resolve King Xuan Lu's obsession, so that most of its original spiritual energy can be integrated into this secret realm, which greatly benefits the secret realm, which is also a great achievement." Lei Su on the side had a blank expression and nodded lightly. However, the eyes of other foundation building fellows flashed with envy. Hearing Gu Jiangkan's guarantee, Lu Xuan was relieved. After all, the gift left by the 5th grade demon beast King Xuan Lu was not so easy to accept. "Well, this time, thanks to you, Master Lu, the King Xuan deer, who had guarded the sect for many years, had a good end, and even left a large number of treasures to this kingling secret realm before he passed away. That King Mu Yuan Qi is what you deserve. I will give you another 300 sword seals as a reward for your resolution of the King Xuan deer's obsession this time." As soon as Gu Jiangkan finished speaking, 300 sword seals like small swords flew out from in front of him and floated in front of Lu Xuan. "Thank you, Master Gu." Lu Xuan bowed and thanked him solemnly. He secretly sighed at the generosity of the giant and Zenran. 300 sword seals are already more than the sword seals he currently has. You know, when he exchanged the 4th grade Xuan Shanteng spiritual seeds from the Synod Hall, he only spent 240 sword seals, so the value of 300 sword seals can be seen. Lu Xuan put the 300 sword seals in front of him into the storage bag, and went to the exit of the Kingling secret realm with everyone. When passing by the spiritual trees and vines that blocked out the sun, palm-sized emerald green monsters flew out from inside, looking at everyone curiously, and then their sides followed Lu Xuan's movement. After junior brother Lu obtained the original spiritual energy, the attitude of these elves in the secret realm has obviously changed. Jeppu beside him chuckled. Lu Xuan turned his head and looked, and the emerald green monsters immediately flapped their light green wings, and merged into the trees. After coming out of the secret realm, Lu Xuan said goodbye to everyone, and was about to go to his own cave, when suddenly, a cold voice sounded behind him. Junior brother Lu, please stay. Lu Xuan turned his head and looked, and it was the quiet and fair-skinned woman who was good at treating monsters. From their previous interactions, he learned that the woman's name was Liu Su, and she was also in the early stage of foundation building. Senior sister Liu, what's the important matter? Lu Xuan asked with a smile. It's nothing important, but I'm amazed by your ability to communicate with spirit beasts, so I want to get to know you, so we can exchange experiences in cultivating spirit plants and raising spirit beasts. In the sect, there are only a few people like us who spend a lot of time and effort on spirit plants and spirit beasts. We occasionally get together to exchange relevant experiences. I see. Senior sister Liu, this is my communication talisman. You can use it to contact me if you have anything. Lu Xuan handed a communication talisman to Liu Su. There is such a small circle in the sect to communicate with spirit plants and spirit beasts, so Lu Xuan is naturally very happy to join it. After all, although he can understand and grasp the real-time status of spirit plants and spirit beasts, his knowledge accumulation in this area is not enough. It is naturally good to learn a little from the powerful spirit plant masters in the sect. What's more, it is easier to get unknown or air spirit seeds from them. The two left contact talismans to each other, and Lu Xuan quickly returned to his mountain. In the room, he counted the gains from this time to resolve the obsession of Kingsu and deer. The harvest was extremely gratifying. The biggest one was naturally the King Mu Yuan key. Although it was only a small part, the dying gift of the 5th grade demon beast was also a huge fortune for Lu Xuan, who was in the early stage of foundation building. Secondly, there was the reward of 300 sword seals awarded by Gujiang Kang, which was worth no less than 2,000 spirit stones, and there was still a situation where there was no market for them. Originally, serving the sect was the duty of the inner disciples. I didn't want to accept these sword seals, but my uncle, he gave too many. Lu Xuan couldn't help but sigh. The number of sword seals accumulated from his hard work and many tasks was just a casual reward from a giant and Zenran. Finally, of course, it was the recipe for the 100 fruit spiritual juice obtained from the picture deep in the obsession of Kingsu and Lu. The spirit juice made from dozens of spiritual fruits and special spirit brew was the unique recipe of the giant and uncle who had fallen outside and was deeply loved by all kinds of spirit beasts. This will definitely hook you firmly. Lu Xuan thought of the greedy Xuanshan Bailuan and Baiyu King Shenyuan, and couldn't help but smile. Chapter 214 Sparks and lightning along the way. Lu Xuan came to a spiritual field, and with a thought, the greenwood source energy in his danshan differentiated into a faint breath. A faint green gas suddenly appeared on his right index finger, and the green gas was full of vitality, attracting many spiritual plants around to unconsciously stretch their branches and leaves towards this side. Lu Xuan gently pressed down, and the faint green gas merged into a mutant firefly grass. Soon, the firefly grass exuded vigorous vitality, and Lu Xuan's spiritual sense could even detect that it was growing rapidly. The growth rate was several times more than normal, and it gradually slowed down after half a minute. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on this mutant firefly grass, and he sensed the simplest and most intense joy that the plant conveyed to him. He came to a 2nd grade flaming fruit again, and did the same thing, sending a faint green gas into the plant. Observation and comparison show that the effect of greenwood source energy on flaming fruit is far weaker than that of firefly grass, but it can also be clearly sensed that it can promote the rapid growth of flaming fruit. Perhaps it's because of the different grades. Although the firefly grass is a mutated spiritual plant, it is still of no grade. The difference between the two is not small, so the effect of the greenwood source energy is naturally very different. Lu Xuan analyzed. He looked at the grass puppet that was faithfully patrolling the spiritual field not far away, summoned it, and a green airflow that was obviously much thicker appeared on his finger, pressing it on the chest of the grass puppet wrapped in grey grass. A green dot suddenly appeared on the grey-black chest, and the green dot expanded rapidly, soon occupying the entire chest of the grass puppet. Under the stimulation of the greenwood source energy, the grey-black grass ropes that made up the grass puppet's body stretched wildly, tightly wrapped around the chest, and wrapped the grass puppet into a weed-covered monster. I didn't expect it to help the growth of the grass puppet. It's a pleasant surprise. Lu Xuan felt that the grass puppet was in good condition, and muttered to himself. After the grass puppet was promoted to the second grade and the large-scale picking of firefly grass was temporarily stopped, it has been a while since the grass spirit essence was obtained, and the original inventory has been almost consumed. Now that we have the more effective King Mu Yuan key, we can use it to increase the growth rate of the grass puppet faster. Lu Xuan continued to experiment and found that in addition to accelerating the growth rate of spiritual plants, it can also control the growth changes of spiritual plants to a certain extent, and even replenish the consumption of King Mu Yuan Qi by absorbing the vitality of spiritual plants. This King Mu Yuan Qi is extremely useful, but it will cause damage to spiritual plants when absorbing vitality. Therefore, it must be used on the blade and cannot be used casually. Lu Xuan decided to use King Mu Yuan Qi only to cultivate the highest grade spiritual plants, so that he could get the rich light ball reward as soon as possible. After a little experiment, Lu Xuan let the light ball float in the danshan, while he carefully observed the spiritual plants in the spiritual field. He had used all the mutated firefly grass he had obtained before to condense spiritual seeds. In addition, after multiple inductions of the 800 spiritual seeds, he currently had more than 200 mutated spiritual seeds. If we plant more than 200 mutant firefly grasses and condense them all, we can get 1 or 2,000 new mutant spirit seeds. Then, we can start a new induction experiment. We can almost get the improved variety of firefly grass. Lu Xuan sighed secretly. After the spirit seeds are planted, he can find out whether the mutation is successful at the first time. If they are damaged, they will be discarded directly, and if they are ordinary, they will continue to be induced. After multiple screenings, he can get far more mutant spirit seeds than those after normal induction. In addition, he can skip the time of cultivating useless mutant spirit plants, making the process of improving his spirit plants much easier and simpler than other cultivators. While patrolling the spirit field, Lu Xuan found that the progress bar under another sword grass was completely full. He grabbed the plant that looked like a long sword with his palm and slowly pulled out the sword grass. With the continuous nourishment of the golden marrow and jade liquid, and the continuous enhancement of Liuli bone forging method and Texuhua Langpian, the hardness of his bones is no less than that of the third grade magic weapon. Even if the edge of the sword grass is extremely sharp, it cannot pierce the epidermis of his palm. Superior quality, not bad. Lu Xuan checked the quality of the sword grass, turned his head, and looked at the slightly flickering white light ball on the ground. It's time to draw the prize again. The 2 sword grasses harvested before, from the white light ball, respectively obtained the Zunlui sword pill and the sword embryo, which made Lu Xuan look forward to the light ball reward brought by the sword grass. With a light touch, the light ball turned into countless light points, piercing into Lu Xuan's body like a sharp blade. A thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 2nd grade sword grass, and obtain the 3rd grade flying sword purple lightning sword. The thought flashed through his mind, and a strange shaped flying sword appeared in Lu Xuan's palm. The flying sword is slender, about 3 feet long, and the sword body is dark purple with light red lines on it, and occasionally there is lightning. There is a bend in the middle that is diagonally upward and then falling, making the flying sword look like a lightning that was directly intercepted. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on this strange flying sword, and he soon learned the details about it. The purple lightning sword, a 3rd grade flying sword, is made of special, or in the Gangfeng, When used, the sword body is attached with lightning spiritual power. The 3rd grade flying sword is just right for me now. After Xuan was promoted to the foundation building stage, although he had many 3rd grade treasures on him, he did not have a single magic weapon that was handy. The previously obtained silver crack blade, red thread needle, etc. had long been eliminated, and the 2nd grade red flame sword was not good enough in the foundation building stage. Now this 3rd grade purple lightning sword just made up for this. The flying sword has been released, so it must be put in the scabbard to be well nurtured. He raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and took out the Xuan scabbard. In the ancient scabbard, there is currently an old flying sword that has been inserted for quite some time, the 2nd grade red flame sword. When it was pulled out, the rich fire spiritual power almost turned into substance, and slowly flowed out of the cracks in the scabbard like magma. The nourishing effect is not bad, and the fire spiritual power contained in the sword body is more rich and pure. Xuan looked at the red flame sword in his hand and sighed. As a reward, today I will let you try a new flying sword. It has the power of thunder and lightning, and I guarantee it will be very exciting for you. He looked at the Xuan scabbard, from which the hot magma was still flowing out of the crack of the scabbard, and said with a chuckle. Upon hearing this, the scabbard trembled slightly, and a thin film of spiritual energy quietly appeared on the crack, trying to isolate the approaching purple lightning sword. Xuan snorted coldly, and the lightning-like sword body pointed straight at the crack of the scabbard. It's just a thin film of spiritual energy. Watch me break it with my purple lightning sword. The tip of the sword easily penetrated the thin film of spiritual energy and went straight into the depths of the scabbard. A subtle purple light appeared on the sword body and swam freely in the scabbard, causing the scabbard to tremble endlessly. After a long time, the ancient scabbard, which had been trembling all the time, calmed down and occasionally shook, proving that the inside was not as calm as the surface. The red flame sword that was inserted before still has the afterglow of fire spiritual power, and now this purple lightning sword has the stimulation of thunder and lightning. How does the saying go? Holding the purple lightning sword and inserting it into the scabbard, sparks and lightning all the way. Xuan couldn't help laughing. Chapter 215 Successful Improvement. Water Firefly. A month passed in a blink of an eye. After resolving the obsession of King Xuan, Xuan basically stayed in his own mountain, cultivating spiritual plants and raising spiritual beasts. During this period, there were also fellow disciples with similar cultivation levels nearby who invited him to explore the secret realm together, but he politely refused. Gradually, the fellow disciples around him knew Xuan's character and knew that he just wanted to be a spiritual plant master who didn't like fighting and taking risks, so they gradually lost interest in inviting him. However, after the news of Xuan helping his true disciple Jepu solve his spiritual beast fertility problem, and resolving King Xuan's obsession in the secret realm gradually spread, people didn't have any disrespect for him, but instead valued him more. After all, with Xuan's growth trend, even if his cultivation level was average, and he was not good at fighting, he would still get an important position in the logistics department such as the Sword Hall and Sinner Hall. Xuan wished that everyone would see him this way and consolidate his personality. During this period, the tasks he arranged in the General Affairs Hall gradually yielded results. With the help of different outer disciples, he collected a lot of 2nd grade demon beast eyes and 2nd grade alien insect eggs. After obtaining more than a dozen demon beast eyes, Xuan took the time to go to Jianmen town and feed them to the hungry 100-eyes strange tree. Many underworld spiritual plants in the courtyard grew well, except for the 5th grade holy infant fruit. Due to the lack of nourishment from the flesh and soul of the infant, the spiritual seeds grew slowly and had not yet begun to germinate. With the protection of the 4th grade thousand illusion clouds and smoke array, the courtyard of Jianmen town was as solid as a rock, and there was no sign of any cultivator intrusion. In the spiritual field, Xuan placed a light blue slender spiritual seed into the spiritual soil. The slender spiritual seed was condensed from the mutated water-based spiritual firefly grass. After becoming a mutated spiritual seed, it was stimulated by Xuan twice. He was planting it to see the induction effect. The earth-inducing technique was performed, and the spiritual soil underwent subtle changes, tightly wrapping the spiritual seed. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the spiritual seeds in the shallow layer of the spiritual soil. Unknown spiritual grass, second grade spiritual plant, can be named. Improved from the non-grade spiritual firefly grass, it contains rich water-based spiritual power and can be used as the main material for common elixirs that can enhance spiritual power, second grade spiritual plant. Finally the improvement was successful. The thought flashed through his mind, and Lu Xuan couldn't help but exclaimed. After 3 generations of induction and stimulation, he finally succeeded in obtaining an improved spiritual firefly grass spiritual seed. This is under the condition that he can repeatedly screen the spiritual seeds many times and save a lot of useless work. If other cultivators want to improve, I don't know how many times more time and energy they will spend than him. It jumped from a non-grade spiritual plant to a second grade spiritual plant, and the grade has been improved a lot. But it can be understood. The second grade spiritual plant is still in the realm of key training, and there is no essential difference from the first grade. Lu Xuan thought to himself that it would be better to get the second grade mutant spiritual firefly grass. After all, the higher the grade of the spiritual plant, the richer the light ball reward. Let's call this mutated firefly grass, which contains rich water spiritual power, water firefly grass. Lu Xuan's mind moved, and the information of the spiritual seeds in the spiritual soil changed accordingly. I hope that after this second grade water firefly grass matures, it can bring enough cultivation rewards. Lu Xuan performed the spirit rain technique, and strands of spiritual energy seeped into the light blue slender spiritual seeds, which greedily absorbed them. Although it has been improved into a different second grade spiritual plant, the water firefly grass and the non-grade spiritual firefly grass are of the same lineage after all, and the type of rewards should be similar. No, I have to get the light ball of the water firefly grass as soon as possible to see if there is any cultivation reward. Lu Xuan suppressed his inner joy and planted the remaining mutated spiritual seeds into the spiritual soil, obtaining a total of 23 successfully mutated water firefly grass spiritual seeds. He planned to continue to induce stimulation for the remaining spiritual seeds to see if he could get a few more successfully improved water firefly grass spiritual seeds. He marked out 3 of the 23 spiritual seeds, intending to use the greenwood source energy to ripen them and get the light ball reward in the shortest time. 3 streams of light green spiritual energy penetrated into the slender spiritual seeds, and the outer shell of the spiritual seeds cracked at a speed visible to the naked eye. Half a day later, 3 water firefly seedlings emerged from the spiritual soil, about an inch long, swaying in the breeze, looking fragile. On the slender leaves, there were fluorescent dots, like stars, and faint light blue spiritual light emerged, like a dream. The ripening effect of the King Mu source energy is unexpectedly strong. After all, it comes from the life spiritual energy of the 5th grade King Xuan deer. The normal second grade spiritual plant maturity period is about 1 year. Now with the King Mu source energy, more than half can be saved. Unfortunately, the quantity is limited, and it is difficult to replenish after consumption. Lu Xuan felt the light green spiritual energy in his dantian and thought with some regret. After ripening the 3 water firefly seedlings, he continued to patrol various parts of the mountain to check the growth of the spiritual plants. The second grade fiery flame fruit and ice still fruit entered the mature stage one after another. One spiritual fruit was azure blue, filled with chill, and the other spiritual fruit was fiery red, looking like clusters of blazing flames from afar. Because the ice still fruit was planted earlier, the spiritual fruit was also larger in size, hanging on the branches, drooping down. In addition, 8 of the 9 sword grasses that were planted not long ago were nourished and cultivated by Lu Xuan using the 4 different sword energies in the 4 seasoned sword art. Each of them grew a section, like a small sword blade, with the tip of the sword pointing directly to the sky. There was also a fire type sword grass in the scabbard, which was stimulated by the residual sword energy of the red flame sword. It was planted near the branch of the earth fire, and was nurtured by the scorching fire spirit. Among the other 3rd grade spiritual plants, the sword raising good and the jade scale fruit began to enter the mature stage. 5 dark green goods were grown on the green vines. Due to the stimulation of the internal and external sword energy, the surface of the goods was mottled, adding a bit of floating and simple meaning. From time to time, one could hear the sound of swords ringing from the gourds, causing several gourds to vibrate in the distance. The jade scale fruit tree produced 8 jade-like fruits. The spiritual fruits were similar to pine nuts, but their appearance was several levels higher. Wrapped in layers of jade folds, they were crystal clear and dazzlingly colorful. The third grade Mizan peach entered the flowering stage, with pink peach blossoms full of branches. Against the backdrop of the light red miasma, there was a faint natural charm. The third grade Fenglai sword grass, which was successfully improved by the stimulation of Zunlei sword lightning, and Yangzuan sword sheath, also grew seedlings. The progress was much slower than the other 9 plants, but the formation was stronger. When Lu Xuan cultivated it, occasionally there would be dark and subtle sword energy shooting out. The 4th grade Earth Fire Heart Lotus and Black Insect Vine grew up a little bit. The Earth Fire Heart Lotus was constantly washed by magma in the hot earth fire, and the red became more and more pure. There was a sense of proudly standing in the magma river. There were more and more insect chambers on the Black Insect Vine, and strange looking insects often crawled out of them and moved around. Because they all had a symbiotic relationship with the Black Insect Vine, the many kinds of insects were relatively peaceful with each other. Occasionally, those that were hostile were detected by Lu Xuan in time, and nipped in the bud. The simple and fulfilling farming days passed quickly. With the frequent ripening of the greenwood source energy, the growth time of the water firefly grass was greatly shortened, and it began to enter the mature stage. Chapter 216 Langayu Blessed Land. With his mind focused, the faint progress bar below the water firefly grass was almost full. Lu Xuan was eager to verify the light ball reward of the water firefly grass at this time, so he didn't consider whether it was fully mature and picked it directly. Detailed information about the water firefly grass was revealed. Water firefly grass, 2nd grade spiritual plant, ordinary quality, acceptable. Lu Xuan casually checked the quality of the water firefly grass and focused his attention on the white light ball that appeared. The white light ball flickered slightly at the original position of the water firefly grass, stirring Lu Xuan's heartstrings. I hope there will be a cultivation reward. Lu Xuan reached out and gently touched the surface of the white light ball with anticipation. The light ball suddenly turned into countless tiny light spots, like a galaxy hanging upside down, pouring into Lu Xuan's body. A thought emerged from his mind. Harvest a 2nd grade water firefly grass and gain 1 year of cultivation. As the thought flashed through his mind, the spiritual power in his body suddenly increased and filled his meridians. Lu Xuan practiced the great 5-element gong to convert the extra spiritual power into spiritual liquid and store it in his dinshan. It is because of my hard work that I have made such rapid progress today. It is true that you will get what you pay for. The familiar reward for cultivation made Lu Xuan happy, and he continued to pick the remaining 2 water fireflies ripened by King Mu Yuan Qi. Harvested a 2nd grade water firefly grass, and obtained a 2nd grade elixir, Yunling Dan. Harvested a 2nd grade water firefly grass, and obtained 2 years of cultivation. The 2 mature water fireflies were of ordinary and good quality respectively. A 2nd grade Yunling Dan that could enhance spiritual power appeared in the light ball. For Lu Xuan, who was in the early stage of foundation building, it still had some effect. In addition, it also increased his cultivation by 2 years, probably because the water firefly grass he picked was of good quality. After being promoted to the foundation building stage, after the mature non-grade firefly grass is picked, the ordinary quality reward is 1 month of cultivation, and the good quality is 2 months. Now, after the 2nd grade firefly grass matures, the ordinary quality reward is 1 year of cultivation, and the good quality is 2 years. The effect is more than 10 times. There is hope for the formation of the elixir. Although the cultivation process of a 2nd grade spiritual plant consumes more spiritual power and takes longer, with such a cultivation reward, this little bit of hard work is nothing. With his ordinary qualifications, the cultivation of his fellow disciples in the sect for 1 year is equivalent to several years of his. Only by constantly accumulating cultivation can he make further progress. The possibility of cultivating to the elixir stage normally is very small, and it can be said to be wishful thinking. Now it's different. I practice hard every day, plus a little bit of light ball reward. 2-pronged approach. The speed of cultivation improvement is much faster. Lu Xuan thought with a smile. After confirming that the firefly grass can bring rich cultivation rewards, Xuan was relieved. He planned to cultivate the remaining 20 plants normally and use the King Mu source energy at a critical moment. In addition, there were other abnormal spirit seeds that needed to be constantly stimulated to see how many second-grade water firefly grass spirit seeds he could get. In the sky, Xuan sat on an elegant spirit crane and shuttled between the mountains. This time, he was invited by Liu Su, who had met him once in the Kingling secret realm, to communicate with several fellow disciples in the sect who were proficient in spirit plants and spirit beasts. The spirit crane landed on a quiet mountain peak. Liu Su, who had a fair face and a quiet temperament, had already been waiting on the mountainside. Welcome junior brother Lu to come to the mountain peak for a small gathering. Sorry to bother senior sister Liu. Xuan smiled in return and followed Liu Su to an elegant courtyard. After that, other fellow disciples arrived at the mountain peak one after another. Every time a cultivator came, Liu Su introduced the two sides to each other. Finally, all the cultivators arrived. In addition to Xuan and Liu Su, there were 5 others, all of whom were in the early stage of foundation building. During Liu Su's introduction, Xuan keenly noticed that a gloomy young man looked at him with a very obscure scrutiny. Whenever Liu Su talked to him, her expression was slightly nervous. Xuan was thoughtful and guessed that the young man must be secretly in love with Liu Su, so he kept a proper distance from her to avoid misunderstandings. Spiritual fruits and tea flowed in the gurgling spring water, and people could take what they wanted. Everyone had a lot of attainments in spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, and they exchanged relevant experiences with each other. Xuan benefited a lot from it. These fellow disciples entered the sect many years in advance, and they were deeply engaged in spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, accumulating a lot of knowledge and experience, allowing him to learn a lot of tricks from them. And Xuan's occasional words or two also made everyone's eyes light up. Although he did not master so much knowledge about spiritual plants, he understood many things related to the essence of spiritual plants, especially the cultivation methods, which was even more higher level, which made the others suddenly enlightened. I heard that junior brother Lu went to the Kingling secret realm to solve the obsession of the 5th grade King Xuan dear before his death. I was half believing and half doubting at first. Today, I know that junior brother Lu is indeed gifted in spiritual plants. That's right, hearing is worse than meeting. If junior brother Lu has time, you can come to my cave to chat, and we can have a deep exchange. Xuan waved his hand hurriedly. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Senior brothers and sisters, thank you for your praise. He never concealed his skills in spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, but he hid the cultivation and many treasures obtained from the light ball very well. The more he showed in spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, the easier it would be to contact high-level monks in the sect and get more precious opportunities. If he hadn't helped Yang Qingfeng solve the anorexia problem of the black-scaled dragon, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to contact the true disciple Jepu, let alone enter the Kingling secret realm. In that case, he would have missed the 2 precious things, the sword order and the greenwood source energy. Brother Lu, can you become a disciple of a giant and master in the sect? If there is no one, I can help introduce you to my master. After everyone exchanged a few humble words, an ordinary middle-aged cultivator asked, thank you for your kindness, brother. After being promoted to an inner disciple, I considered it again and again, and finally decided to practice alone. I'm used to being lazy, and can't stand being constrained. Xuan replied with an apologetic look. Becoming a disciple of a giant and master is nothing more than being able to get guidance from a giant and master and have a better background. But there are pros and cons, and there will be many constraints in various aspects, so Xuan decided to go it alone. It's enough to have a big sect like Xianjian sect as a backing. Anyway, he is not an ordinary casual cultivator at the moment. He has 2 growing stage guardian spirit beasts to rely on, and he is slowly showing his value in the sect's important sword hall. As for resources, skills, etc., Xuan estimated that it would be better to plant a high-grade spirit plant by himself to get the light ball reward. Hey, have you heard that Langayu Blessed Land, one of the 3 major blessed lands of the sect, will be opened in about half a year? Really? I heard this news from a true disciple. It must be true. It seems that I have to find a way to get a sword order. That's for sure. After all, it is a blessed land of the sect, which cannot be compared with ordinary secret realms. It is full of opportunities. If you are lucky, you can get ancient spirit seeds and ancient spirit beast eggs. What's more, there is a giant and real person guarding it, so there is no danger in entering the blessed land. Such an opportunity must not be missed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Jade Scale Fruit Ripening. Hearing that ancient spirit seeds and ancient spirit beasts eggs may be found in the blessed land, Xuan could not help but be fascinated. My fellow brothers and sisters, I have just been promoted to an inner sect disciple not long ago. Can you tell me more about the blessed land? Liusu smiled and said slowly. The blessed land is an independent small world outside the cultivation world, and above it is the cave heaven. Junior brother Lu, have you ever entered a secret realm before? Most secret realms are fragments of blessed lands that have been lost or connected to the cultivation world. There are many treasures in the secret realms, not to mention the blessed land. The sect currently controls 3 blessed lands, each of which is managed by a giant and Zenran. Since the space of the blessed land is not particularly stable, frequent entry of cultivators may lead to adverse effects. Therefore, one of them will be opened every 10 to 20 years. Half a year later, Langai Blessed Land, one of the 3 blessed lands, will be opened. I see. Xuan nodded slowly. So, what are the conditions for entering the blessed land? Will we encounter any monsters and evil spirits that threaten our lives? He raised a question that he was most concerned about. There are monsters and evil spirits in the blessed land. The sect allowed us to enter and also wanted to use us to clear them out, but they are not threatening. Also, there are giant and masters who are always watching the blessed land. There may be injuries, but your life is safe. When you find an opportunity, fellow disciples may compete with each other, but they will stop at a certain point. After all, we are all inner disciples. We meet each other every day in the sect. There is no need for an extreme situation of life and death. In addition, the uncle giant and master is watching behind us. If we are found to have violated the sect's precepts, the consequences will be serious. Seeing that Xuan was thinking about something, a middle-aged cultivator next to him spoke up. Although there are opportunities everywhere in the blessed land, it is not easy for ordinary inner disciples to find treasures such as ancient spirit seeds. These rare treasures are usually located in strange places, with natural mechanisms and formations for protection, and are difficult to enter. Only those foundation building cultivators with strong backgrounds, who have various relevant information and treasures obtained from their elders or masters, can obtain them with much lower difficulty. Xuan nodded gently, without any abnormality in his expression. This kind of situation is really common, and he has long been able to deal with it calmly. His focus is all on possible spirit seeds and spirit beast eggs. Without the method of refining spirit seeds, it is difficult for wild spirit plants to breed on a large scale. Only by chance can spirit seeds be produced, and the same is true for spirit beasts. However, the blessed land has a natural growth environment suitable for certain spirit plants, and the probability of condensing spirit seeds is slightly higher. Junior brother Lu, don't think too much for now. The number of inner disciples who can enter the blessed land is limited, and a sword order is required as an admission qualification. The value of a sword order is usually not less than 3 to 5,000 spirit stones, and it is still in short supply. You have just been promoted to an inner disciple not long ago, so you'd better focus on cultivating spiritual plants. The gloomy young man suddenly said indifferently. Senior brother Zhang, try my newly brewed spirit wine. Liusu heard something wrong in the young man's tone and quickly changed the subject. Thank you for your reminder, senior brother, but it's a rare opportunity. I will try my best to try it. Anyway, there is still about half a year before the blessed land opens. I will try my best to save spirit stones and see if I can get a sword order. Xuan ignored the gloomy young man's strong tone smiled at him, and said sincerely, "Last time, after helping Jeppu, one of the true disciples, solve the fertility problem of the pair of yin and yang kunfish, Jeppu gave him a sword order." He was still hesitant, but after hearing everything about the blessed land today, his attitude gradually leaned towards entering. Without the worry of his life and the possibility of obtaining ancient spiritual seeds, he would naturally not miss such an opportunity. Ancient spiritual seeds. Even if the planting method is lost, as long as I plant the spiritual seeds, I can find the method of cultivation. Not to mention, the huge light ball reward that may be brought by planting such a high-grade spiritual plant across levels. Lu Xuan thought secretly in his heart, and his idea became more determined. After a few more exchanges with each other, they tended to disperse. My fellow brothers and sisters, I have always loved all kinds of strange spiritual plants. Even if I can't cultivate them, it doesn't matter. The important thing is to experience and try. If you have any unknown spiritual seeds that you can't identify, or other strange spiritual seeds, you can come to my mountain to find me. I can exchange them with other treasures. Okay. I wish I had met junior brother Lu earlier. I got an unknown spiritual seed a few years ago. The sect's giant and uncle couldn't identify it, and didn't know how to plant it. In the end, I could only sell it at a low price. Indeed, I have had a similar experience. Everyone agreed happily. Unlike Lu Xuan, they were devoted to planting spiritual plants. For them, spiritual plants and spiritual beasts were just a means of making money. The importance of cultivation was far greater than this kind of cultivation skills. The cultivators present were all at the foundation building stage. They were considered to be influential figures outside the sect. They often went in and out of various secret realms and occasionally had the opportunity to encounter unknown spiritual seeds. If they did not know the type of spiritual seeds and did not get the corresponding cultivation methods, even if they were successfully planted, they would not be able to grow normally. They were already satisfied to be able to exchange unknown spiritual seeds for other treasures from Lu Xuan. After getting everyone's promise, Lu Xuan was happy and returned to the mountain. A small lake at the foot of the mountain. The spiritual energy on the lake was dense and rising. Spiritual plants such as ice radish fruit that were suitable for growing in a watery environment were planted on the shore of the lake. A faint chill spread, causing a thin layer of ice to form on the nearby lake surface. The wind falcon flapped a pair of broad light blue wings and swept across the lake. Its belly still maintained a round shape, but its speed was not affected at all. It looked like it would fly over the lake in a flash. With a splash, a fiery red dragon emerged from the bottom of the lake, flew obliquely towards Feng Falcon, and hung on Feng Falcon's ankle. 5 months had passed in the blink of an eye, and the young dragon had grown a lot, from less than 3 feet, before to 5 feet now. Hanging on Feng Falcon's neck again made it a little overwhelmed, so the Lihuo dragon, which was extremely dependent on Feng Falcon, changed its position and moved to the ankle, usually staying at the bottom of the lake. As long as Feng Falcon passed by the lake, it would jump out at the first time to be intimate. Lu Xuan was now patrolling the spiritual fields in various parts of the mountain, checking the growth of each spiritual plant. Under his careful cultivation, the spiritual plants grew very well. When he came to the slightly remote mine on the side of the mountain, Lu Xuan carefully checked the status of the jade scale fruit planted there as usual. One of the jade scale fruits has matured. Between the thin jade-like leaves, the faint progress bar under a jade scale fruit has been filled. Lu Xuan quickly took out a square jade box from the storage bag. The muscles on his palms keratinized and became similar to glass. He tightly grasped the stalk of the jade scale fruit, pulled it off with force, and put it into the square jade box as soon as possible. Chapter 218 The Fenggayu Jade Seal, Red Gem. It's really beautiful. Against the backdrop of the white jade box, the jade scale fruit placed in the middle was crystal clear, with a flash of spiritual light. The layers of jade folds were closely arranged, exuding a fresh fragrance. As Lu Xuan sighed, his mind was focused on the jade scale fruit. The jade scale fruit is a 3rd grade spiritual fruit. After taking it directly, it can improve the physique of cultivators or monsters, and can also be used to refine certain body refining pills. It can be taken directly to improve the physique, which is good. Lu Xuan was not in a hurry to eat this jade scale fruit. He slightly raised his head and looked at the jade-like plant. At the place where the jade scale fruit was picked, a white ball of light hung on the branch, flickering slightly. It's time to draw the prize. Lu Xuan calmed down his mood, stood on tiptoe, and reached out to gently touch the surface of the light ball. The moment he touched it, the light ball turned into countless tiny light points, with a bright jade light pouring into Lu Xuan's body. A thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 3rd grade jade scale fruit. Obtain the 3rd grade magic weapon Fengaiyu jade seal. The thought dissipated, and a delicate and small jade seal quietly appeared in his hand. The jade seal was square, about 3 inches long and wide, and it was small but extremely heavy, pressing Lu Xuan's palm down unconsciously. There was a vague shadow of mountain in the jade seal, and it looked different from different angles. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the small jade seal, and he instantly learned the detailed information about the jade seal. Fengaiyu jade seal, a 3rd grade magic weapon, was smelted from a jade mountain, heavier than a mountain, and its size can be controlled after refining. 3rd grade magic weapon. Lu Xuan was pleasantly surprised. The jade scale fruit he just got was of good quality, and it was quite good to get a rare 3rd grade magic weapon. He simply sacrificed and refined the Fengaiyu jade seal, and his mind moved. Big, big, big. The jade seal was thrown into the air, spinning around, and its size expanded rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it had grown to about 5 feet, and stopped in the air, like a jade hill. Lu Xuan was afraid of hitting the flowers and plants on the mountain, so he controlled the jade seal to return to its normal size. If I can be more proficient in the sacrifice and pour in enough spiritual power, the size of this jade seal can be increased a lot. In the future, if you meet any opponent, you can just smash it. It's simple and rough. Lu Xuan put away the Fengaiyu jade seal, looked at the jade scale fruit in the jade box, and took a deep breath of the fragrance lingering around the jade box. The fruit is so beautiful, how can I bear to eat it? It smells so good. The jade scale fruit slid into his stomach, and suddenly, a rich fragrance burst out in his stomach. A warm and jade-like spiritual power filled Lu Xuan's limbs and bones, gently nourishing every part of his body. I have the golden marrow jade liquid in front, and now I have the jade scale fruit, plus the glass bone tempering method and Takesu transformation dragon chapter. My defense has been pulled to the maximum. Lu Xuan couldn't help but sigh. After picking a ripe jade scale fruit, there were still 7 left on the plant, all of which had entered the mature stage. Lu Xuan was not in a hurry, and did not use the King Mu source energy in his danshan to ripen them. Jade scale fruit, sword raising good, and more than 30 water fireflies obtained through multiple screenings. Before the opening of the Langaiyu blessed land, we can harvest a lot of light balls. At this time, it was less than a month away from the opening of the blessed land, and the sect had already revealed the details of the opening. Although he rarely went out, Lu Xuan could still feel the subtle changes in the atmosphere in the sect. More and more foundation building cultivators returned to the sect, and there was a faint sense of restlessness. He had a sword order in his hand, so he naturally sat on the fishing platform and was leisurely. In the courtyard, Lu Xuan gently shook the cup in his hand. In the cup, the 100 fruit spirit juice shook with it. Lu Xuan took a sip, and the fragrance of various spirit fruits mixed together. The taste was harmonious, but the layers were distinct, and he could feel all kinds of wonderful changes. No wonder the 5th grade King Xuan deer was thinking about this 100 fruit spirit juice before he died. Even if there is no emotional factor mixed in it, the taste of the spirit juice is worthy of its longing. Lu Xuan thought secretly, while tasting the 100 fruit spirit juice. It takes dozens of different spirit fruits to prepare the spirit juice, and it is very difficult to collect them. Last time in the Kingling secret realm, it was with the help of the sect's power that he was able to collect them successfully in the first time. After Lu Xuan had the idea of preparing his own, he did not go around collecting spirit fruits in person, but directly spent a sum of spirit stones to set up tasks in the general affairs hall. If the price was slightly raised, a large number of outer disciples would take the task and collect enough spirit fruits on behalf of Lu Xuan. The 100 fruit spirit juice has a strong after effect, and drinking too much will inevitably produce a feeling of drunkenness. In the yard, Feng Falcon stretched out its wide wings, lying on the ground with its belly facing up. Lihuo Jian along was like a dead snake, lying on Feng Falcon's round belly, motionless. The cloud-stepping lynx tried to maintain its elegant posture, walking with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow. His eyes were hazy, and even his roar became full of meaning. "I told you to be greedy." Lu Xuan looked at the unconscious Feng Falcon and the young dragon, and said with some amusement. Not long after he prepared the 100-fruit spirit juice, the 3 children took advantage of him to inspect the spiritual field and secretly drank a lot, causing them all to fall into a state of intoxication. Lu Xuan was a little drunk, and he inspected various parts of the spiritual field, carefully observing the growth status of the spiritual plants. He came to the jade scale fruit spiritual plant, and his mind was focused on a jade scale fruit that he had been paying attention to for a long time. As expected, the progress bar below the jade scale fruit was completely full. The second jade scale fruit is ripe. Lu Xuan suddenly sobered up a lot. His palm turned into jade, carefully grasped the handle of the jade scale fruit, and pulled it off with force. He glanced at it casually, and found that the quality of this jade scale fruit was the same as last time, both of good quality. A thought emerged from his mind. Jade scale fruit, a 3rd grade spiritual fruit, formed by the stimulation of the jade breath. Lu Xuan passed over the thought, and focused all his attention on the white light ball that was swaying between the jade leaves. He stretched out his hand high, like embracing the moon, and hooked the white light ball. The light ball exploded silently, turning into countless tiny light points, and in an instant, they all poured into Lu Xuan's body. Harvested a 3rd grade jade scale fruit, and obtained the 4th grade jade spiritual ore Kaigangayu. Countless light points disappeared, and a piece of ore appeared in Lu Xuan's palm. The ore was the size of a baby's head, with an uneven surface and a reddish color. Inside it was a substance similar to chalcedony flowing slowly. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the spiritual ore in his hand, and he immediately noticed the detailed information about it. Kaigangayu, a 4th grade spiritual ore, contains a large amount of jade essence, which can be used to refine corresponding magic tools and flying swords. 4th grade spiritual ore. Lu Xuan was not good at refining tools, so he had to put the Kaigangayu in his hand away first. This jade scale fruit in your hand can also improve the physical fitness of monsters. You can give it to lynxes. The 3 children gathered around unconsciously, looking at the crystal jade scale fruit in Lu Xuan's hand with warm eyes. Lu Xuan did not hesitate, and a black sword light shot out from his body, cutting the jade scale fruit into 3 equal parts, 1 for each of them. Chapter 219, Howling Sea Sword Talisman. Gao. After the 3 children each took a small piece of the jade scale fruit, they were stimulated by the rich and warm spiritual power, and roared at the same time. Some were passionate, some were crisp, and some were rough with a bit of meaning, one after another, resounding through the mountain peaks. The cloud-stepping lynx is a 1st grade alien monster, the wind falcon is in the 2nd grade growth period, and the 3rd grade Lihuojao is still in the larval stage. It is just right to divide the jade scale fruit into 3 parts. After roaring to vent, the 3 children each found a place to absorb the spiritual power of the jade scale fruit. Lu Xuan continued to patrol the spiritual field. When he met the grass puppet, he gently touched the huge grey grass tumor on its head and input a wisp of greenwood source energy. The grey grass all over the grass puppet grew wildly, slowly turning green as it stretched, and then wrapped it tightly. Lu Xuan's spiritual consciousness probed into it, and found that the grass rope inside was weaving rapidly, recreating the body of the grass puppet. After inspecting the spiritual field, Lu Xuan returned to the house, took a good bath in the dragon's blood, practiced the Taeksuhua Langpian for a while, and felt his body becoming stronger and stronger. There was only about a month before the opening of Langaihu Blessed Land. Lu Xuan had the sword order in hand, and he was not in a hurry. He slowly cultivated the spiritual plants, and waited for them to mature. 10 days later, he came to a rock wall. More than 20 abandoned flying swords were placed in a disorderly manner, and the vines of the sword-raising goods were connected among them, forming a special rack for the flying swords that had become waste. Although there were many flying swords, they were all second-hand goods that Lu Xuan bought from the stalls of casual cultivators in Jianmen Town, and he didn't spend many spiritual stones on them. On the vines, 5 green goods of different sizes were hanging high and low. The good at the lowest position absorbed the most sword intent, so it was the largest in size and matured faster. After learning that a good was about to mature, Xuan came to inspect twice a day so that he could open the light ball reward as soon as possible. With his mind focused, the progress bar below the green, mottled good at the lowest position was completely full. It's finally ripe. Xuan paid special attention to the good that nurtured the attacking sword energy and picked the good as soon as possible. There was a natural stopper at the mouth of the good to prevent the sword energy nurtured inside from leaking out. As he shook it gently, a slight sword whistle came from the inside of the good, and the sword intent surged, as if it was about to shoot out from inside at any time. Sword nurturing good, a third grade spiritual plant. The good contains invisible sword energy, which is extremely powerful. Xuan's thoughts swept through it, and then he focused his attention on the white light ball hanging on the vine. The light ball flickered slightly, and as the vine swayed gently, it moved Xuan's heartstrings. He held his breath and reached out to gently touch the surface of the light ball. The light ball exploded with a bang, and countless tiny light spots turned into invisible sword intent, rushing into Xuan's body. Xuan only felt a slight tingling sensation on the skin, touched by the light spots, and a thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a 3rd grade sword nurturing good, and obtain a 4th grade Xiaohe sword talisman. A talisman that was neither gold nor jade appeared in Xuan's hand. The talisman was about 3 inches long, and shaped like a sword tip. There were surging waves on the surface. Upon closer inspection, one could feel the infinite sword intent contained in it. Xuan's mind was focused on the talisman and he instantly learned the detailed information about the talisman. Roaring Sea Sword Talisman, a 4th grade talisman, can instantly release a raging sword intent when activated. A full strength attack can severely injure, or even kill a cultivator in the middle or late stage of foundation building. Consumable, can control the amount of sword energy activated by itself. The more the amount, the stronger the sword energy. 4th grade talisman. Xuan couldn't help but exclaimed. This sword raising good is indeed a spiritual plant variety that can only be exchanged for a sword seal, and the light ball reward harvested is extremely generous. This roaring sea sword talisman is his most powerful means of attack so far. Ordinary talismans are disposable, but this 4th grade Xiaohe sword talisman can be used multiple times. If used well, it can be of great help to me. Xuan looked at the waves of sword energy in the talisman, and couldn't help but sigh. Now that I enter the blessed land, I have another great support. He carefully put away the Xiaohe sword talisman, hung the Yangjian good on his waist, and held the ancient Yangsuan sword sheath in his hand. He casually performed a water mirror technique, and a tall, handsome, and bright and clear-eyed boy appeared in the hazy mirror. He was wearing a green shirt, with a green mottled good hanging on his waist, and holding an ancient long sword in his hand lazily and casually. His temperament was elegant, just like a banished immortal. I became an immortal in the Xuan sect's swordsmanship? No, I became an immortal by farming in the Xuan sect. Xuan put away the good in the scabbard, and his spiritual power was restrained. In an instant, he became an ordinary spiritual plant master. As the opening of the Langayu blessed land drew closer, Xuan keenly sensed the change in the atmosphere of the inner sect. Recently, the sword order has become the most popular item among the inner sect disciples, and many fellow disciples have tried to exchange for a sword order through various channels. Xuan was not affected by it, and cultivated the spiritual plants with peace of mind. Soon, there were only 3 days left before the opening of the blessed land. During this period, Xuan harvested another jade scale fruit, and obtained a piece of Chigan jade spirit mine. 32 water fireflies were about to mature. Xuan estimated that it might take some time to enter the blessed land, and then he would not be able to pick the spiritual plants in time. Therefore, he used some King Mu Yuan Qi to fully ripen half of the 16 water fireflies. He planned to use the remaining 16 to condense seeds and expand the scale of planting later. Condensation of seeds needs to start sometime after the spiritual plants are fully mature. The process is relatively complicated. Xuan decided to start after returning from the blessed land. Among the 16 second grade water fireflies, due to the ripening and grade improvement, no perfect varieties were picked. 2 were of superior varieties, 5 were of good quality, and the remaining 9 were of ordinary quality. After picking, 16 light balls appeared immediately. Lu Xuan touched it lightly, and thoughts and rewards came one after another. Among them, 7 water fireflies brought cultivation rewards. Ordinary quality rewards 1 year of cultivation, good quality rewards 2 years of cultivation, and superior quality rewards 3 years of cultivation. In total, it brought Lu Xuan 11 years of cultivation. The spiritual energy in his body suddenly increased by a large amount. He practiced the great 5-element gong, and converted the spiritual energy into concentrated spiritual liquid, and stored it in the danshan. Finally, I'm not standing still. Lu Xuan felt the long-lost surge in cultivation, and then thought of when he was just promoted to the foundation building realm, because he was busy improving the varieties of spirit fireflies, and practicing hard for many days. He could hardly notice the rise of the cultivator. The strong contrast between the two made him feel happy and boundless. 6 second grade pills, Yunling pills, were opened from the remaining light balls. They can enhance the spiritual power in the cultivator's body, and are also useful for Lu Xuan, who is in the early stage of foundation building. In addition, there are 2 third grade talismans. The water dragon talisman, when activated, can produce a water dragon, which can cause damage to the enemy under the control of spiritual consciousness. It is equivalent to being able to instantly cast 2 intermediate spells, the water dragon spell. The practice method of this spell is included in the great 5-element kung fu. Lu Xuan is self-aware. In addition to absorbing spiritual power, most of the rest of his time is spent on practicing the 5-element escape spell and spells that can assist in cultivating spiritual plants. Chapter 220 The Blessed Land opens. The light balls brought by the 2 top quality plants are both quite good. One plant is rewarded with 3 years of cultivation, which is equivalent to 3 ordinary water fireflies, and the other plant is rewarded with a 3rd grade treasure. Harvest a 2nd grade water firefly grass, and obtain the 3rd grade treasure water bead. Water bead, a 3rd grade treasure, holds the bead in the mouth, and can move freely in the deep water, as if walking on flat ground, and can also enable cultivators to practice normally in the water. Although the 3rd grade treasure water bead has a relatively simple function, it can have a good effect in certain specific environments. Lu Xuan sighed, and as the opening time was getting closer, he counted and calculated his own strength in his mind. After being promoted to the foundation building stage, whether it is the cultivation method or the treasures on the body, there is a huge gap with the key training stage. Needless to say, the spiritual power is more than 10 times deeper. In other aspects, for attack, there are 3 grade magic weapons, the purple lightning sword and the sealing U jade seal, the 3 grade Zunli sword pill in the danshan, the 4-seasoned sword art, that is often used in the cultivation of sword grass, and the 4 grade talisman Xiaohei sword talisman, as well as the 3 grade talismans such as the water dragon talisman and the pure spirit talisman, which are among the best in the early stage of foundation building. For defense, there are 3 grade gold marrow jade liquid, jade scale fruit, glass bone forging method and Takesu transformation dragon chapter, to enhance physical fitness and flesh in different ways, King Mu source energy to improve self-healing ability, and a substitute evil infant, that can block a fatal blow, and the immaculate jade to detect the traces of evil spirits in time. In addition, there are the hidden spirit cloak that can temporarily hide the body shape and breath, the floating light body method, and the 5-element escape method. From this point of view, although he did not go to the secret realm outside to explore any opportunities, nor did he fight with others to the death to compete for treasures, his wealth and treasures have reached an extremely rich level. Of course, he has always been just an ordinary spiritual plant master in the sect, and no one knows his true strength. After entering the Langayu Blessed Land, try to obtain opportunities such as spiritual seeds and spiritual beast eggs, and try to avoid fighting with others, unless he seriously damages my interests, and has a great chance of winning. The Blessed Land is guarded by the giant and uncle. If you really encounter a situation that is difficult to fight, well, you can ask him for help as soon as possible. When in the market, Lu Xuan, who has rich experience in reporting, awakened the relevant talent again. Time passed quickly, and soon it was time for the Blessed Land to open. Lu Xuan had already found out how to enter the Blessed Land. He placed the sword order in front of him. His face was calm and peaceful. He sat cross-legged and waited quietly. Suddenly, the sword order glowed brightly, and a strong attraction came from it. Lu Xuan grabbed it, probed his spiritual consciousness into it, and then the whole figure disappeared from the house. In the sky, thousands of stars were flowing, and occasionally sword energy passed through the sky like a meteor. Lu Xuan shook his head gently, shaking off the slight discomfort in his mind, and looked around. At this moment, he was floating in the sky, with nothing under his feet. He didn't know his exact location, and couldn't see what was below. Could it be that I entered the sect's protective formation, the Xuan Xingdao sword formation? Lu Xuan looked at the stars in the sky and the powerful sword intent that passed by from time to time, and remembered the protective formation he saw from afar when he just entered the sect. According to the fellow sect member who led him into the sect at that time, the Xuan Xingdao sword formation was a 7th grade formation, and even if the Yuanying power fell into it, there might be a risk of falling. 10 feet away, there was a middle-aged cultivator with an infinite chill all over his body and a pale face standing quietly in the air. His aura was as vast as the sea and boundless. "Hello, uncle." Lu Xuan's face changed slightly, and he quickly bowed and greeted respectfully. The middle-aged cultivator nodded gently without saying a word. Lu Xuan quietly retreated a little, and found that there were more than a dozen cultivators nearby, each holding a sword order in his hand. Disciples of the inner sect kept appearing in the sky, and several of them had dealt with Lu Xuan before, including Liu Su, who had met him several times. "Junior brother Lu, I didn't expect to enter the blessed land with you." When Liu Su saw Lu Xuan, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she whispered to him, "Hello, senior sister Liu, I'm just lucky. When I helped senior brother Jet, one of the true disciples, solve his spiritual beast problem, he was so happy that he gave me a sword order. But you know me, senior sister. I'm usually obsessed with cultivating spiritual plants and neglect cultivation. My cultivation is average, and I'm not good at fighting. Please take care of me." After entering the blessed land, Lu Xuan smiled slightly and whispered to Liu Su, "It's only right for us to take care of each other." Liu Su quietly flew aside and didn't say anything to Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan noticed that there were more than 30 inner disciples with sword orders, more than 20 of whom were at the same level as him, in the early stage of foundation building. More than 10 were in the middle stage of foundation building, and there were several others whose levels were unclear. It was unclear whether it was because of the hidden treasures or the huge difference in their levels. As far as I know, there are more than 200 foundation building cultivators in the sect, excluding those who are practicing in seclusion, stationed in other places, and exploring opportunities. It can be said that half of the inner disciples who remain in the sect have the qualifications to enter the blessed land. There were more than 30 foundation building cultivators, and his own level of cultivation was at the bottom. Such fierce competition made Lu Xuan a little nervous. "Okay, almost everyone is here. I'm the one who opened the Langai blessed land this time, and the one who maintains and looks after it is another Jinden Zenran. Some of you may have entered the blessed land more than once and are familiar with the various rules, but I still want to reiterate them. After entering the blessed land, you will also be responsible for clearing out the monsters during the exploration. Of course, the monster materials you obtain will also belong to you. The monsters in the blessed land are all rare species, rarely seen in the cultivation world. The materials alone will make your trip worthwhile. Since you often clear them, you can basically deal with them. If you encounter a life-threatening situation, you can ask Jinden Zenran for help. There is another thing I have to say. The blessed land prohibits fellow disciples from killing each other. You can fight, but you can't fight to the death. If you are found killing, or even maiming fellow disciples, the lightest punishment is to be confined for 100 years, and the worst punishment is to extract the soul, and refine the spirit, and never enter the cycle of reincarnation. Remember? Remember. Everyone nodded in response. Very good. If you can abide by these, you will get good opportunities. The strong chill emanating from the pale middle-aged monk eased a lot, and the corners of his mouth curled up stiffly. He spread his hands, and suddenly, the sword orders in the hands of everyone flew out and gathered together. The stars in the sky were moving in a mysterious and obscure trajectory. In the void, a faint light gate appeared at some point. Inside the light gate, various strange scenes flashed from time to time, as if there was a magical world hidden inside. A sword light of 100 feet condensed, like a lightning shot, instantly swept hundreds of miles, and fiercely stabbed the faint light gate. A long and thin crack appeared on the light gate, and the crack continued to spread, forming a huge opening. "Go in." Hearing what the middle-aged monk said, Xuan, who was eager in his heart, drove the purple lightning sword, followed the other inner disciples, and drilled into the huge crack. Chapter 221. Both parties are satisfied. After a dizzy spell, Xuan fell into a towering ancient forest. The Xuan sword sheath with the purple lightning sword inserted in it was hanging at his waist. 2 third-grade water dragon talismans slipped out of his sleeves and fell into his palms. His spiritual awareness spread carefully, and he did not find anything abnormal within 100 feet around him. Xuan was relieved. It seems that more than 30 inner sect disciples were randomly dropped into the blessed land, and I don't know what area the others entered. He thought to himself, carefully observing the surrounding situation. He was surrounded by towering ancient trees, and his height was so high that he could not see at a glance. The dark green branches and leaves covered the sky, making it dark below. Thousands of thick branches hung down, crowded together. The spiritual energy is even richer and purer than in the inner sect. It is worthy of being the blessed land of the sect. Xuan felt the spiritual energy around him. Suddenly, the purple lightning sword on his waist was pulled out a lot, and he turned his head abruptly to look somewhere. Everything was normal. What he saw was only thick tree trunks. Strange. Xuan muttered. Just now, he felt a vague consciousness spying on him, but when he turned around, he found nothing. The ancient forest area is extremely vast. He randomly chose a direction and planned to walk out of this strange forest first. While walking, the vague feeling of being spied on occasionally appeared, but when Xuan went to check, he found nothing, as if he was just an illusion. Xuan snorted in his heart, and his speed increased instantly. His figure passed through the ancient forest like floating light. After a few moments, Xuan's figure emerged silently, looking coldly at the branches hanging from a tall ancient tree. On the thick blue-black branches, a face with blurred facial features was looking at the direction where Xuan disappeared before. Seeing Xuan suddenly appear, the blurred facial features showed a look of fright. Immediately, it was deeply hidden in the blue-black branches. What? More cautious than me? Xuan's spiritual sense swept over and confirmed that the spirit in the ancient tree had completely disappeared. He then inserted the purple lightning sword that had been pulled out into the ancient scabbard. Lightning flashed, and the Xuan sword scabbard shook violently, as if it could not withstand the deep penetration of the purple lightning sword. After understanding the source of the spying feeling, Xuan was relieved. Since it appeared in the ancient forest, the spirit has been spying on me, but it has not made any moves, and has not shown any hostility. When I found it, it even thought of running away at the first time. The spiritual energy of the plants in the ancient forest is extremely rich, and the area is so vast. Maybe I can contact it more, and see if I can replenish the greenwood source energy. Xuan thought of this, and the greenwood source energy left in the Danshan was separated into a hair-like spiritual energy, lingering on his fingertips. The greenwood source energy comes from the dying gift of the 5th grade Xuan deer. It can greatly enhance the affinity with spiritual plants, which is a great temptation for this kind of plant spirits. Sure enough, a moment later, the fuzzy facial features appeared at the end of the branch, with a pair of dark blue pupils staring at the greenwood energy on Xuan's fingertips without blinking. Want to eat? Xuan's voice was low, and his tone was full of temptation. The fuzzy facial features hesitated for a moment, but finally couldn't resist the temptation of the greenwood energy, and the branch moved closer to Xuan. Xuan flicked his fingertips lightly, and a thin green gas shot into the mouth of the fuzzy facial features. After absorbing the greenwood energy, the fuzzy facial features on the branch flowed and changed, and the green light surged, and then returned to its previous appearance. It looked more radiant. After completing the feeding procedure, Xuan focused his mind on the ancient wood spirit and instantly learned its detailed information. Wood spirit, a ray of spirituality is born in the ancient tree, and it is a wood spirit formed under the long-term nourishment of rich and pure plant spirit energy. The strength is equivalent to that of an ordinary cultivator in the early or middle stage of foundation building. He has a strong ability to hide and escape among the trees. He can control spiritual wood and is born with a variety of wood-related magic. It is gentle and usually does not actively attack cultivators. The spirit with the strength equivalent to that of a cultivator in foundation building. Fortunately, I did not anger it after discovering it. Otherwise, it would not be easy to solve it in its home turf. Now that I understand its temperament and preferences, there is no need to fight and kill. We can achieve mutual benefit. Xuan looked at the endless tall ancient trees around him, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Such abundant plant spiritual energy resources cannot be found casually in the sect. He smiled at the wood spirit hidden in the blue-black branches and said softly, "Is it delicious?" The end of the blue-black branch gently nodded to show affirmation. For plant spirits, the greenwood source energy is delicious and nourishing, and can be said to be a delicacy of reduced dimension. Ah. Xuan sighed deeply. We met for the first time, and I feel that we are destined to meet. I want to feed you more of the special green energy I just had. Unfortunately, there is not much left in my body, so I can't satisfy you properly. His tone was full of regret. Seeing that the wood spirit's blurred features were a little depressed, he changed the subject. However, there is a way. I have mastered a skill that can transform the spiritual energy of plants and trees into the special origin breath just now. Why don't you let me absorb a little bit of the spiritual energy of plants and trees in the forest, and I will feed them to you after the transformation. The wood spirit was very intelligent and understood the meaning of Xuan's words and showed hesitation on his face. The little spiritual energy of plants and trees absorbed is completely a drop in the bucket for this ancient forest. It won't take long to return to normal. It can also help you reduce the possibility of other wood spirits in the surrounding area, so as not to compete with you for territory resources. Why not? Xuan said fiercely. The wood spirit paused for a moment, controlled the blue-black branches and tapped hard. Seeing this, Xuan smiled with satisfaction, and buckled the 4th grade Xiaohe sword talisman in his hand, to prevent the wood spirit from changing its mind halfway. The light green light ball in the Danshan rotated rapidly, forming a series of green shadows. More than 10 almost invisible green tentacles grew behind Xuan, extending rapidly and drilling into the towering ancient trees. A steady stream of plant and wood spiritual energy flowed into his body along the tentacles, and was transformed into the purest greenwood source energy by the light green light ball. The green tentacles continued to expand, expanding the absorption range as much as possible. Xuan controlled it very well, and when the ancient tree was obviously wilted, he changed the target, and did not exhaust the pond to catch fish. The light green light ball in the Danshan became full again little by little. From time to time, he shot a wisp of greenwood source energy at the wood spirit next to him with an expectant look, letting it continue to enter the trap of delicious spiritual energy. The amount of greenwood source energy sent out was not much, and it seemed that, after absorbing about 100 strands, one strand was sent out. Xuan waited until the greenwood energy in his Danshan was fully restored, before he retracted his light green tentacles. He looked at the full and rich light green light ball in his Danshan, with a look of unsatisfied satisfaction. The wood spirit not far away, after absorbing a large amount of greenwood energy, had clearer features than before, and it could even be seen that he had burped, and his face also looked unsatisfied. Both parties were very satisfied. Chapter 222 to Headed Armadillo. Okay, we have met, but we will have to say goodbye. See you later. Xuan said to the wood spirit with a fist. As soon as he entered the Langaiu blessed land, he replenished the greenwood source energy that was mostly depleted, which made him feel very happy. Greenwood source energy is extremely useful to him as a spiritual plant master. It can improve the self-healing ability of the body and the affinity with spiritual plants. More importantly, it can speed up the growth of spiritual plants. He used the greenwood source energy to ripen the water firefly grass he planted earlier, greatly shortening its growth time and confirming the type of light ball rewarded the fastest speed. It's just that, although it's fun to use, it's very troublesome to replenish. It needs to absorb a large amount of grass and wood spirit energy for transformation. Xuan has never found a suitable opportunity, and now he has finally replenished it. Seeing that Xuan wanted to leave, the wood spirit fuzzy facial features whispered to Xuan a few times. Lu Xuan had the experience of feeding it, so he immediately realized its idea. The wood spirit's fuzzy facial features disappeared instantly, and soon, a dark black branch drilled out from the ground dozens of feet away, wrapped with a few dark green wood, and moved towards this side at a rapid speed. "Is this your gift for me?" Lu Xuan asked curiously. The wood spirit's facial features merged into the branches and nodded. Lu Xuan took 5 dark green woods with his spiritual power. The surface of the wood was surging with spiritual light, and there were circles of lines on the bottom, which showed that it was very old. "Thank you very much." He swept his spiritual power over the 5 woods, and put them into a spare storage bag. Then, he said goodbye to the wood spirit, and his figure turned into a wisp of green smoke, passing through the towering trees. The wood spirit followed closely behind, and its blurred facial features appeared on different branches, and its dark blue eyes were full of reluctance. It had been in this ancient forest for a long time, but this was the first time it encountered a cultivator who would feed it such delicious spiritual energy. The behavior of the wood spirit made Lu Xuan feel a little guilty, but it disappeared as soon as it appeared. "It's just that we each take what we need," he thought to himself, and waved to the wood spirit following behind him. "I'll come to see you next time. By the way, replenish the spiritual energy of the plants and trees." He added another sentence in his heart. Before leaving, he asked the wood spirit, and under its guidance, he kept running in one direction. "Finally, I'm out of this forest." After more than half an hour, Lu Xuan stood outside the ancient forest, looking at the dense and lush trees in front of him, and sighed. During this period, he encountered several vague thoughts of spying, which should be wood spirits in other areas of the forest. Lu Xuan had already replenished the greenwood source energy, and he didn't have any thoughts about the wood spirits with home advantage, so he left directly. He randomly chose a direction, and after flying for dozens of miles, he finally met 2 fellow disciples. One of them had met once before. "Brother Xuan, please stay," he shouted to a short young man from a distance. The young man's name was Xuan Dinghang, and he was also in the early stage of foundation building, but he broke through 20 to 30 years earlier than Lu Xuan. The mountains where the two were located were only dozens of miles apart, so they were just nodding acquaintances. It turned out to be junior brother Lu. Xuan Dinghang and another person waited for Lu Xuan to approach, and said with a smile, "This is senior brother Deng Yi, who is about to break through to the middle stage of foundation building. This is junior brother Lu Xuan, who is very good at spiritual plants." Xuan Dinghang introduced the two of them separately. "When we gathered in the sword formation, I didn't expect to see you, junior brother Lu." After the 3 of them chatted for a while, Xuan Dinghang sighed. "I was lucky enough to get a sword order, so I came in to join in the fun and see if there is a chance to find some rare spiritual seeds." Lu Xuan explained with a smile. Junior brother Lu seemed to come from the direction of the ancient forest just now. "Did you encounter any spirits?" Deng Yi asked curiously. "Indeed, I was unlucky and fell into that forest. Fortunately, I was only at the edge of the ancient forest and didn't get stuck in it. I encountered a wood spirit when I came out, but I didn't get too entangled with it. I just wanted to leave that forest," Lu Xuan said casually. "Brother Lu, your choice is correct. Those wood spirits are extremely difficult to deal with. They hide and escape into ancient trees at any time. They have a natural advantage in the forest, so it is quite troublesome to deal with them. Only occasionally will fellow disciples go deep into the forest to capture one for practicing magic, but at least several people in the early stage of foundation building will join forces, or the cultivation level of the middle stage of foundation building or above. In addition, the heart of a 100-year-old ancient tree can occasionally be dug out from the ancient trees, which is considered a good material for refining weapons." Deng Yi explained to Lu Xuan in detail. He and Xuan Dinghang looked at each other and seemed to have reached an agreement in an instant. "Brother Lu, I wonder if you have anything important to do now?" Xuan Dinghang suddenly asked Lu Xuan. "I go with the flow. Wherever I go, I will try my best to find an opportunity to find 1 or 2 spirit seeds," Lu Xuan said casually. "Why don't you come with us to hunt a monster?" The monster is a 2-headed armadillo with the strength of the 3rd rank. The scales on its body can be used to forge defensive magic weapons. This 2-headed armadillo monster is very good at burrowing into the ground. If you are not careful, it will hide in the rocks. Moreover, its scales are as hard as iron and difficult to break through with ordinary means. The reason why the two of us came here is that we spent a lot of money to learn about the location of the two-headed armadillo from a senior brother in the middle stage of foundation building. We want to see if we can hunt a few of them and forge 1 or 2 pieces of high quality armor. For this purpose, we specially borrowed the magic weapon talisman that can prevent the two-headed armadillo from burrowing into the ground. However, the magic weapon needs one person to control it at all times, which makes the attack weak. I happen to meet you, junior brother Lu, and I know that you are a good person, so I thought of inviting you in and splitting the gains equally afterwards. Kyanding Hang said to Lu Xuan, with a hint of expectation in his eyes. This two-headed armadillo is good at burrowing underground. It sounds like it's moving in secret. How can you two brothers capture and kill it? Lu Xuan asked in confusion. Two-headed armadillos feed on refined iron ore and usually live in rare spiritual soil areas, nourished by the spirit energy of the earth. This time, we prepared a 4th grade spiritual ore. We set up a trap around the spiritual ore, and I think we can lure the two-headed armadillo out. Usually live in rare spiritual soil areas. Lu Xuan keenly captured the key information. In other words, there is a lot of rare and precious spiritual soil in the place where the two-headed armadillo monster lives. He thought to himself, and he was a little tempted. As the grade of the spiritual plants planted becomes higher and higher, their growth requirements become more and more complicated. For example, the 5th grade holy infant fruit obtained before must grow in negative spiritual soil to ensure a good growth rate. When Lu Xuan heard about the habit of the two-headed armadillo monster, he immediately became more interested. Okay, since the two brothers have invited me so kindly, I will go with you to trap and hunt the two-headed armadillo. After Lu Xuan learned the specific information about the two-headed armadillo monster, he nodded in agreement. The 3 of them hurried on their way and came to a barren and tall stone mountain. This is it, Deng Li said softly, taking out a fist-sized piece of lavender ore from his storage bag. Chapter 223 Hate me, hate me. The stone mountain was deserted. Under an ordinary spiritual tree, a lavender light appeared. Upon closer inspection, a corner of the ore could be seen. The 3 of them hid their bodies in different ways, waiting for the two-headed armadillo in the stone mountain to fall into the trap. Lu Xuan hid in the bushes. Because Kyanding Hang and the others were there, he used the earliest breath-retaining method he learned to restrain his own breath, and did not use the more effective 3rd grade hidden spirit cloak. Amidst the rustling sound, a strange monster with 2 heads emerged from not far from the ore, and a pair of grey-white eyes looked around. The monster was grey-black all over, with a slender body, and black scales all over its body, extending from the neck all the way to the tail. Lu Xuan and the other 2 waited patiently. Slowly, 3 more two-headed armadillos emerged from other places. 2 of them were on the left and right, and 1 was supporting them. The first one that emerged confirmed that it was safe, and then appeared and disappeared in the soil, slowly approaching the location where the spiritual ore was placed. Suddenly, a pair of sharp claws emerged from the soil and hugged the lavender ore. Do it. Lu Xuan heard Deng Li's voice transmission in his ears, and the purple lightning sword was instantly pulled out, causing the scabbard to tremble endlessly. At the spiritual mine, runes on the ground flashed, and a vine cage quickly grew out, binding the two-headed armadillo inside. Countless barbs grew on the blue-black vines, and penetrated deeply into its body. Lu Xuan and Deng Li locked onto a two-headed armadillo that was on the lookout respectively, and the other one that was supporting them from a distance, had a grey-yellow spiritual light flashing on its body. It was about to drill into the soil, and a grey light shot at it, fixing its body, and it fell to the ground. It took a few breaths to return to normal. Kyanding Han was holding a grey stone mirror in his hand, and grey light was shooting out from the mirror. The vine cage bound one of them, and Lu Xuan and the other killed each other, leaving Kyanding Han to control it. If he found any signs of the two-headed armadillo escaping, he would use the stone mirror magic weapon to freeze it as soon as possible. Because he was worried that the two-headed armadillo monster would escape from his hands, the flying sword in Lu Xuan's hand was like spring rain, and the offensive was endless, like maggots attached to the bones. Seeing that the two-headed armadillo could not break free from Lu Xuan's sword intent, the two heads roared together, and hundreds of stone thorns drilled out from the ground, and attacked Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan's spiritual consciousness noticed the change, and the sword intent in his hand changed accordingly, instantly becoming violent and manic, and the sword energy was crisscrossed, cutting off all the stone thorns. The purple light flashed on the body of the purple lightning sword, and a lightning bolt shot out like a poisonous snake, landing on the scales of the two-headed armadillo, sizzling, and a burning smell came. In this way, Lu Xuan did not use any other means at all. He just relied on the uniqueness of the purple lightning sword and the changes of the four-seasoned sword art to firmly control the two-headed armadillo, while constantly causing various injuries. The whole process was easy and everything was under control. Seeing that the two-headed armadillo entangled by Deng Yi on the other side was about to die, Lu Xuan's mind moved, and spiritual power rushed into the purple lightning sword frantically. The sword intent was like the scorching sun, and lightning and thunder flashed in the clear sky, and it hit the two slender heads of the monster. The violent nature of the summer sword technique itself, coupled with the lightning power of the flying sword, the head of the two-headed armadillo turned directly into black ash. He joined Deng Yi and attacked the two-headed armadillo that had been controlled by Xuan Han. In the cage, the two-headed armadillo, who was trapped in the cage, saw that the situation was not good. The gray-yellow spiritual light on his body was shining, and his whole body expanded several times. He didn't care about the spikes that deeply penetrated his abdomen, head, and scales, and broke free from the vine cage. Before he walked far, a grey light came from afar, and a black spear magic weapon fell from the sky and nailed it to death. Two brothers, can this two-headed armadillo be spared? I want to catch one alive and raise it on the mountain. After returning to the sect, seeing that the two-headed armadillo was about to die, Lu Xuan suddenly said, Junior brother Lu's fanatical obsession with spiritual beasts is far beyond my imagination, but since junior brother has asked, I will naturally satisfy him. Xuan Han laughed heartily. Generally, when encountering monsters in blessed lands and secret realms, few cultivators want to catch them alive and raise them, but Lu Xuan's request was not excessive, so the two did not take it to heart. 3 two-headed armadillos were neatly placed on the ground. After Lu Xuan treated the other one a little, he tied it up with a rope and placed it in front of the 3 dead companions. Deng Yi and Xuan Han began to process the monster materials. The most valuable thing on the two-headed armadillo is naturally the scales all over its body, which can be used to forge high-grade defensive magic tools. The second most valuable thing is claws, monster meat, and blood. Since Lu Xuan got a half-dead two-headed armadillo first, he naturally got a lot less monster materials. He mainly took some monster meat and a small part of the two-headed armadillo scales. Do you two brothers have enough scales to forge magic tools? If not, you can take what I have. Lu Xuan said with a smile. How can I do this? Xuan Han and the others were a little embarrassed. The more armadillo scales, the better, but it would be a bit embarrassing to take the one from Lu Xuan. It's okay. I didn't intend to use them to forge magical instruments. However, I will take the skeletons of the 3 two-headed armadillos. Lu Xuan said. Compared with this little bit of armadillo scales, both the skeletons and the pupils are more valuable to him. The skeletons can be used to cultivate thorn bones, and the pupils can be used as nutrients for the 100 pupils strange wood. Both are 3rd grade, and have obvious effects. Okay, these will all belong to junior brother Lu. The two of them were grateful for the favor, and the skeletons and pupils were not rare parts of the two-headed armadillos, so they readily agreed. After dividing the spoils, Lu Xuan said goodbye to the two. Xuan Han and the other two tried to persuade him to stay, but seeing that Lu Xuan was determined to do so, they did not force him, and went their separate ways. Half an hour later, Lu Xuan's figure reappeared in front of the stone mountain, and his spiritual consciousness swept around. With a flick of his hand, the badly injured two-headed armadillo appeared on the ground, tied tightly by a rope. It looked at Lu Xuan with a look of fear and resentment. How does it feel to have just witnessed 3 of your companions being dismembered? We came out together to look for treasures, but 3 of your companions were killed. Their scales were pulled out piece by piece. Their bodies were cut into pieces. Blood was everywhere, and you could only watch helplessly. Lu Xuan's tone was full of sarcasm. The two-headed armadillo was quite intelligent, and when he heard Lu Xuan's words, the resentment in his eyes became stronger and stronger. Seeing this, Xuan had 6 bloody eyeballs in his palm, and the grey eyeballs were full of pain and unwillingness. He rolled the 6 eyeballs slowly in his palm like a walnut. Seeing the corpses of his companions being insulted in this way, a strong grey yellow light emerged from the two-headed armadillo. If you want to kill me, then hate me, despise me, then live your life in ugliness, run away, and use your hatred to destroy me. Xuan laughed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, I Will Raise Your Son. The two-headed armadillo looked at the pupils of its companion who was constantly coiled by Xuan, and the resentment in its eyes became stronger and stronger, almost turning into substance. The grey-yellow light on its body became more and more intense, and with a click, the scales on its body opened up, and the ropes that bound it broke instantly. All this seemed to be beyond Xuan's expectations. Before he could react, the injured two-headed armadillo seized this fleeting opportunity and suddenly drilled into the stone mountain. Before leaving, it left Xuan with a resentful and hateful look. It's not easy to be a villain. Xuan sighed and activated the great 5-element gong. A thin layer of grey-yellow spiritual power appeared on his body, and he also drilled into the stone mountain. The reason why he left this injured two-headed armadillo was not to take it out of the blessed land to raise it. In fact, he just wanted to follow it and find the gathering place of the two-headed armadillo monster group, so as to find the rare spiritual soil on which they depend for survival. Therefore, after kinding Hung and the other to left, he returned to the stone mountain, released the injured two-headed armadillo, and deliberately used words and the remains of his companions to stimulate it, giving it a chance to escape. The great 5-element kung fu that Xuan practiced contained the 5-element escape technique, and he was also good at earth escape. His spiritual consciousness was tightly locked on the two-headed armadillo that was quickly shuttling through the rocks. In the dark golden hidden spirit cloak that was as thin as a cicada's wing, countless nearly transparent silk threads emerged, completely isolating and covering his breath and spiritual power. In less than half a minute, Xuan followed the injured two-headed armadillo to a hollow cave. The cave was blocked from top to bottom, left to right, and only a few areas had light falling, and the entire cave was dark. Xuan was wearing a hidden spirit cloak, hiding in a corner, turning into an invisible posture, and quietly watching everything in the cave. After the injured two-headed armadillo returned to the cave, it let out a shrill roar. Then, one after another, two-headed armadillo monsters emerged from the cracks in the cave and surrounded the injured one. No one knew what the injured two-headed armadillo said, but more than 10 two-headed armadillo monsters were excited, and their roars were filled with endless hatred. Then, the injured two-headed armadillo took the lead, and more than 10 armadillo monsters followed closely behind with hatred, using earth escape. Alas, I was blinded by hatred. Xuan sighed silently and flew out from the corner. According to the time it took to come here, the two-headed armadillo monsters came and went for more than a quarter of an hour, plus the goal of finding me. The time was enough. While analyzing, he quickly came to the depths of the cave. To avoid more trouble at night, it is better to fight quickly and decisively. Xuan used the floating light body technique with all his strength, like a black shadow, silently drilling into the inner wall of the cave. Found it. In the dim light, his eyes suddenly brightened and pierced. In the corner, there was a thick layer of dark yellow soil, and the soil was full of spiritual energy, which could be sensed from afar. Is this Wuling too? In his spare time, Xuan read many books about spiritual plants in the sect's Sutra Pavilion. After a brief inspection, he could tell the origin of this dark yellow soil. Wuling contains abundant earth-related spiritual power, which is suitable for most spiritual plants. It can accelerate their growth, and is often accompanied by the formation of earth-related spiritual minerals. At the same time, Wuling is also the main refining material for many earth-related magic tools. When Xuan was about to put the Wu soil on the ground into his pocket, suddenly, an old two-headed armadillo attacked from the dark. After Xuan entered, he remained alert. The purple lightning sword in his hand swept across, and the lightning flashed, instantly killing the old armadillo monster. After easily dealing with the old armadillo monster, Lu Xuan quickly collected the wuling soil, scraping layer after layer until the grey-black soil was exposed. Before leaving, he took the opportunity to put the two-headed armadillo's corpse into the storage bag. In this way, he quickly shuttled through the cracks in the cave. During this period, he encountered another aging two-headed armadillo. After dealing with it, he quickly collected the wuling soil inside. Is this the granary of the two-headed armadillos? Lu Xuan looked at the spiritual ore everywhere in the cave and said in surprise, there are many types of spiritual ores in various shapes. Most of them are second grade, and there are also many third grade spiritual ores. According to Kinding Hong, the two-headed armadillo usually feeds on various ores. The pile of spiritual ores in front of him must have been collected by this armadillo group for a long time. He naturally put these spiritual ores into the storage bag and continued to search for the wuling soil in the cave. There are still 2 baby armadillos left. In the deepest part of the cave, Lu Xuan found 2 light grey two-headed armadillo babies. The babies were less than a foot long, and their scales had not yet grown. When they saw Lu Xuan coming in, they pretended to be fierce and roared at him, looking ignorant and not yet weaned. Where are your parents? Where did they go? How could they bear to leave you alone at home? What if you meet bad people? Lu Xuan crushed a piece of second grade ore and fed each of the 2 two-headed armadillos a small piece. His mind was focused on the light grey body of the two-headed armadillo baby, and a thought flashed through his mind. Two-headed armadillo, 3rd grade demon beast, juvenile stage. It is naturally good at earth escape, can move freely in rocks and soil, feeds on refined iron ore, is extremely sensitive to the smell of various ores, and can easily find spiritual mines. During the growth process, they will gradually master various earth-related magic. The scales on the body of a mature two-headed armadillo have a strong defensive effect, and are rare materials for refining defensive magic tools. If I don't eat soil, who will? A 3rd grade monster beast, just born not long ago, barely has the strength of a 1st grade monster beast. Too weak. I'm a kind person, and I really can't let you go. How about this? Follow me first, and after you find your parents, I will let you go back to them. Lu Xuan squatted down and said gently to the 2 two-headed armadillo cubs. Then, before the 2 two-headed armadillo cubs could react, he directly put them into the life bag. The life bag can greatly slow down the loss of vitality of spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. Even if a 1st grade two-headed armadillo cub is left for a long time, it will not be affected much. After Lu Xuan confirmed that the two-headed armadillo's nest had been destroyed, he estimated that the more than 10 two-headed armadillos that went out to seek revenge would soon return. He clasped his fists in the direction the two-headed armadillo left. I will raise your son. Then, a thin layer of grey-yellow spiritual energy shield appeared on his body. He chose a direction opposite to the departure of the two-headed armadillo and dived into it. Lu Xuan was moving quickly through the rocks like a fish. There was darkness in front of him, but he felt at ease and contented, and there was no hindrance in the hard rocks. He crawled out of the soil and looked into the distance. The stone mountain was more than 10 miles away from him now. I don't know how those two-headed armadillo monsters will react after returning to their nest. Being robbed this time can be considered as a lesson for them. I hope they can remember it well. As for whether the anger of the two-headed armadillo monsters will affect their former fellow disciples, Lu Xuan can only pray for their own good luck. Chapter 225, The Ghost Vine in the Medicine Garden. Junior Brother Lu, we have arrived at the ancient temple of the Blessed Land. Liu Su's fair face looked at the majestic ancient temple in front of him, with a hint of eagerness in his eyes. Yeah. Lu Xuan nodded gently. After emptying the nest of the two-headed armadillo monster, he headed straight to the center of the Blessed Land at a very fast speed. During the period, he encountered some blind monsters, which he easily solved. When he was about to arrive at the ancient temple, he unexpectedly met Liu Su, and the 2 of them went together to take care of each other. The ancient temple in front of him is located in the center of the Blessed Land. It is the main target of many Xianjian sect monks who enter the Blessed Land. Various rare treasures, high-grade magic tools, exercises, elixirs, etc., and even occasionally 5th grade treasures appear. However, entering the center of the ancient temple requires passing through many formations and restrictions, and it is difficult for ordinary inner disciples to pass those tests smoothly. Only those with strong family backgrounds and talents will be taught by their elders and masters, and given magic tools to break the ban. Lu Xuan and his companions only knew about the ancient temple's specific location, but they came here to try their luck with a fluke mentality. Treasures are for those who are destined to get them. After entering the ancient temple, the two of them shuttled through it at a high speed. The ancient temple was vast, and the ground and walls were made of unknown materials. It was as if a stone fell into the sea when the spiritual consciousness probed into it, and it was greatly hindered. Medicine Garden. When passing a side hall, Lu Xuan couldn't help but stop. On the bronze main door of the side hall, there was a plaque with two large characters with ancient charm written on it. Junior brother Lu, do you want to go into the ancient temple medicine garden to take a look? Seeing Lu Xuan's strange behavior, Liu Su also stopped and asked curiously. That's right. I want to see what kind of spiritual plants the ancient cultivators might be cultivating. Lu Xuan said in a deep voice. I heard from my senior brothers and sisters who entered the blessed land before that there are many spiritual plants in the medicine garden of the ancient temple, and there are many third grade ones among them. But it is said that there are a large number of mutated demonic plants inside. They look the same as ordinary spiritual plants, but if a cultivator or demon beast approaches, they will suddenly attack. Because it is difficult to distinguish, many fellow disciples fell in the medicine garden and were seriously injured. In addition, there are third grade spiritual plants everywhere in other areas of the blessed land, which are much safer than the medicine garden. Therefore, the number of fellow disciples entering the medicine garden has gradually decreased. Really? Lu Xuan looked at the two ancient characters on the plaque and said softly. He didn't know what he was thinking of, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes, and he turned to look at Liu Su. Senior sister Liu, you know me well. I have a great interest in spiritual plants and animals, even more than cultivation. Since I have come to the medicine garden left by the ancient cultivators, I naturally have to observe and admire it. As for how many opportunities I can get, that is secondary. I didn't expect junior brother Lu to be so sincere in cultivating spiritual plants. In this case, we will part ways for the time being. Junior brother, please be careful. Liu Su had no intention of entering the ancient medicine garden with Lu Xuan. She was more keen on exploring other areas of the ancient palace to obtain opportunities. Although she was amazed at Lu Xuan's determination for spiritual plants, she made a quick decision. Take care, senior sister. Lu Xuan clasped his fists towards Liu Su and turned to enter the medicine garden. After entering, it seemed as if he had come to a new world. The area of the medicine garden was larger than Lu Xuan had imagined. On the grey-black soil, there were scattered spiritual plants from afar. The corners of Lu Xuan's mouth rose. The reason why he chose to enter the medicine garden was indeed a bit curious, but more importantly, he came to seek opportunities to see if he could find one or two spiritual seeds. In the entire blessed land, only here is the most likely place for the emergence of spiritual seeds. Not all spiritual seeds will naturally grow into spiritual plants, or their vitality will continue to fade away and become waste seeds. There are also some spiritual seeds, especially high-grade varieties, because the surrounding environment does not meet its growth conditions or cultivation methods, and may instinctively enter a dormant state slowly, so as to slow down the loss of vitality in the spiritual seeds to the greatest extent, and wait for the right time to regenerate roots and sprout, and cultivate plants. The ghost-faced stone mushroom that Lu Xuan had previously obtained in the secret realm near Lilayang Market was of this type. Only by crushing the resentment of the ghost souls could the dormant spiritual seeds be awakened and cultivated normally. He entered the medicine garden with this idea in mind. Ordinary spiritual soil, nothing unusual. He squatted down, pinched a small ball of grey-black soil with his fingers, felt the spiritual power contained in it, and said secretly in his heart, "That's right, if there is any special spiritual soil, it would have been scraped up by the fellow disciples who entered the medicine garden before, so how could it be my turn to collect it?" Lu Xuan stood up and went deep into the medicine garden. Along the way, he found some scattered spiritual plants, but they were all low-level species, so there was no need to take the risk to pick them. If he picked them rashly, he might get into trouble and be attacked by demon plants disguised as normal spiritual plants. As Lu Xuan continued to go deeper, the grades and varieties of spiritual plants were greatly improved, which made him, who had seen many third grade spiritual plants, a little interested. Just as he was about to pick them, he suddenly felt a violent fluctuation of spiritual energy coming from the front. Lu Xuan's mind moved, and he restrained his breath. His figure was like a floating light, and in a few breaths he came to the place not far from the movement. He saw that there were 3 inner disciples fighting fiercely with a strange spiritual plant. From time to time, tentacle-like blue-black vines emerged from the ground. The vines were covered with sharp barbs, making extremely sharp whistles, bringing up gusts of fishy wind, and madly attacked the 3 monks. The 3 cooperated very well, and in an instant, they easily solved the strange spiritual plant. "Junior brother over there, why don't you come over and chat for a while?" While clearing the vines, an ordinary looking young man called out in the direction of Lu Xuan. "Hello, senior brothers. I'm just passing by and want to see if I can find 1 or 2 spiritual plants in the medicine garden." "Junior brother, are you alone?" the young man asked in surprise, after scanning the garden with his spiritual sense. "If you are alone, you'd better be careful in this medicine garden. There are many demon plants in it, which are very aggressive. If you are careless, you may fall into their trap." Seeing Lu Xuan nod, the young man instructed. "Thank you for your reminder, senior brother. Are the strange spiritual plants that you just solved the so-called demon plants?" Lu Xuan looked at the strange-shaped spiritual plant not far away and asked curiously. "Yes, the demon plant is called the strange ghost vine. It will disguise itself as a normal spiritual plant and sneak attack the monks and monsters who want to pick them. The 3 of us work together. If we encounter normal spiritual plants, we can pick them at will. If there are mutant spiritual plants that attack us, we can also easily solve them together. Although it is a bit troublesome, it is better to have a stable harvest," the young man said patiently. "Isn't that just stepping on a landmine? Pushing the spiritual plants forward one by one. There is no technical content at all." Lu Xuan commented secretly, said goodbye to the 3 people, and continued to go deeper. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.